on Off the Cuff Radio. Now, for those new to the broadcast, TM3 products from TM3 United are some of the best vitamin supplement products I have ever taken, and I had that confirmed recently when I went to my functional medicine doctor. You see, for years I'd been suffering from frequent urinary tract infections, kidney infections, and the like, and they were so bad sometimes that I would have inflammation of the kidneys that would cause pain in my lower back. Well, I noticed that since I'd started taking the TM3 products, that the pain in my lower back had started to subside, and the kidney infections were no longer even remotely as bad as they had been. Well, I got my blood work back recently from my functional medicine doctor, and he confirmed what I suspected, and that is that my kidney levels were the best they had ever been since I started going to my doctor. And if they can help me, they can certainly help you too. So if you'd like to learn more about the products, just simply go to tm3united.com/Sam. That's tm3united.com/Sam. And you can learn more about the products as well as sign up for the products and help support Off the Cuff Radio while getting more healthy at the same time. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the business opportunity associated with the products and maybe earn an income for yourself while promoting some of the best vitamin supplements anywhere, simply go to tm3hope.com to learn more about the business opportunity associated with TM3 United. So we wish you the best with the products. Many blessings to you, and we'll keep you updated as we get more testimonials regarding these wonderful vitamin supplements.
There are many people asking questions. There are many people asking why. There are many people paying attention. There are many now who see the big lie. There are many folks who want to get busy.
Well, it is the 7th of September, 2025, and hope you're all doing very well. I'm doing good. I'm doing just wonderful, and certainly hope that you guys are too. It's been beautiful weather around here, and I hope it is where you are too. We're certainly enjoying the pampering, and but you know, as the old saying goes, all good things got to come to an end, and I'm sure it will eventually. But for now, let's bask in the nice weather and enjoy it for what we're getting. Particularly if you live anywhere in the Midwest, you should be getting nice breaks from all the heat that we had back in July and early August. So anyway, there's that. A couple of things I want to mention here real quick is I want to mention that coming up here, it's getting where it's not too far off now, and that's our local gold and silver meeting that's coming up here on the 18th of September, the 18th of September, over at Wildflower Cafe and Emporium, which is located at 207 North 1st Street here in Owensville. And this is going to be particularly for business owners, but if we don't get a lot of businesses showing up, we'll have some individuals that can straggle along too. So anyway, we'll give you more information further into the show on that, so you can make plans to attend that. And then there's another one in Eureka, Missouri, soon to be announced. So we'll get all those out of the way as soon as possible. But anyway, we have a special guest, or at least we're supposed to. Some of you may know I contacted the lady who's responsible for the one room Little Red Schoolhouse project. And we invited her on the show, and I don't know if she showed up yet, Gretchen?
I haven't heard anything, so.
All right. Well, we're just going to have to coast along here, and hopefully, I hope we did get our wires crossed as far as times. I told her Eastern time. I gave her everything in Eastern time because the Eastern time is where she is. She's in Virginia, and so hopefully we can make that work. I mean, I got a few things on the burner that we can get to cover if we need to during the course of the broadcast, which will not only buy time, but be some good informational articles as well. One of the things I want to get into that we're going to start talking about, and it's been a long time since we've covered it, but one of the shows that I want to do in the future is a broadcast having to do with the new types of nuclear reactors that are going to be coming in the future. Now, the reason these shows would be so important, if I can get some guests on regarding this, and right now I don't have anything, I'm just telling you that this is something that I want to cover eventually, and that is because of the fact that there are thorium reactors out there, and these are reactors that don't require the boiling of water, and it's important that we learn about these because the powers that be want to make these technologies available to the big corporations and stuff, but keep us out of the loop on it. You know, those of us that just the average individuals banging around out here in society. And it's important that we learn about these because you can't protest something that you don't know about. And if we want these things, we're going to have to stand up and demand that these things may be made available to the public. And I've long since stated, based on my research into the technology, that there's no reason that in this day and age that we couldn't live in an environment in which our power plant to power our homes, our businesses, would be right in the basement or in the boiler room or just whatever room you happen to have in your establishment where your furnace, water heater, and other sort of stuff are located. And these things are small. If you can power a whole neighborhood with one about the size of a refrigerator, then why couldn't you have one that's small enough to just stick in the corner in a basement or somewhere in a home, power a home, and that way you'd have power no matter what. But, of course, we have make-work jobs that the power companies would throw a fit over if they didn't have them. And, of course, they don't want to be left out of the loop. They want to be able to just yank us around, you know, by the curlies, you know, since they are a monopoly. And so it's going to be hard to get them to give that up. But only if we learn about the new technologies. And the thorium reactors are among some of the safest out there. And so we're going to try to get some guests on and do some shows on that somewhere in the future. But it is a technology worth watching because this is what they want to do with these big data centers that are going in. You know, some of you may know that they're trying to put these big data centers in everywhere. Now, fortunately enough, over here in St. Charles County, the citizens stood up and knocked that one down. And not literally, of course, but
For only a year.
But they basically got the St. Charles City Council to drop the idea, in the sense that, first of all, they were dishonest with the public in not letting them in on the whole deal. They signed a non-disclosure agreement. And isn't that a nice way to represent your constituents? That's just wonderful, isn't it? But anyway, that's what they did. And but then the citizens fought back and they won for now. And something for those that may live in St. Charles County that you might want to consider looking at is that they're going to be back to look at this again in a year, because they only got out of this for a year. So I think what they're trying to do is wait for the heat to die down and then get back into this again. So it ain't over till it's over. But you got to be persistent and you got to keep standing up. You can't just fight a fight one time and say, I got that one done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. Nope, because there are people that are bound and absolutely determined to do these things. And you can't allow these shady deals to be brought up behind the scenes without your input on the deal. And you may lose and you may win, but at least you'll go down fighting as opposed to just giving up and just tucking your tail between your legs right off the bat. And so we're still waiting on our guest, but we got a few other things that we can cover in the interim that we can talk about, at least to some extent. One of them, and you may not want to get into the whole thing right now, Gretchen, but you just got out of a big library fight over your way, didn't you?
Yes. Well, the majority of the Board of Trustees of the Christian County Library had been sued about a year ago by the former board attorney and one of the board members who were not happy with a vote that was taken And so I think it was a lawfare move, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
They sued the 3 majority board members for, quote unquote, violating sunshine law, violating their bylaws. And it languished and, just went on and on for almost a year, but finally it was dismissed with prejudice last month, I think. And it was just a nice thing to get off their plates. So,
yeah,
this is going outcome.
Yeah, this is going on everywhere. This wanting to put transgender stuff in the libraries, pornographic books, and all kinds of stuff. This is going on all over the country, and the quicker you can nip it in the bud, the better off you'll be.
Yes, that's so true. But unfortunately, most public libraries, even ones in very rural areas, are awash in books that are age inappropriate, sexually explicit, and often have the transgender ideology. And I know in our library system, we had at least 400 age inappropriate and sexually explicit transgender agenda books in the children's and teen sections of our public library. So it's unfortunately very common. Most people are shocked to find out that it's in their libraries, but it is. The school districts are dealing with this sort of thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I'm trying her number again in case she happens to answer this time. We're trying to get our guest
up. Probably just plumb out of her head.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if that's not what happened, because I'm not getting an answer. There's nobody answering that phone at all over there. And,
yeah, it might be her office phone.
Yeah, it's possible. I know the other day when I called it forwarded to her cell phone, so she may not even have it forwarded. So, and I don't have her cell phone number. So, anyway, we'll just keep coasting along here. My apologies, folks. Sometimes you set these things up and they don't always go as planned. But we'll just talk about issues here, cover issues, and see where we go.
Well, I think, I think one of the things why this Red Schoolhouse Network is taking off and doing so well is because our schools and our public institutions are just full of inappropriate materials, curriculum, and so forth. And so when I read about Danita and her system and the things that she's doing, I was just thrilled to find out. And, Missouri has such a huge homeschool community that founding a one-room schoolhouse like our great-grandparents and great-great-grandparent had in our nation is, I think, a wonderful, wonderful way of bypassing the public school system and educating our children in a much more proper way.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things that I am impressed with is when I was looking through what she had up there, how easy it can be to start one of these things. And that was what I wanted to have her go into, was how easy it is to start one of these. Because one of the things we need to do is we need to make this available to more students, because even the one lady here that's starting a local school over here, trying to a local private school here, could only accept, I think, she up to 12 students now, I think, Trish, something like that?
I think so.
Not a lot. And there's many on the waiting list. And the problem is, in the meantime, where do the parents send their kids if they can't get in? I mean, if you got a lot of students on the waiting list and just one lady going around trying to do this.
Right. Well, this idea of micro schools, which is kind of what the Red Schoolhouse is about. These micro schools are just, remember the idea of little neighborhood schools where every child could walk? You didn't even need a bus.
Yeah.
And things were decentralized. I think that's where we need to get back. When you look at what in Missouri, DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Odysee has become quite the monster, and it takes a huge amount of money from the taxpayers, and it promulgates all kinds of really heinous non-governmental organizational agendas like DEI, SEL, CRT, and it pushes them through down to the local schools. So there really is not even local control in your school districts anymore. It's all being top down, and if you want state money, if you want federal money, you have to toe the line. So micro schools would subvert and avert all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the things that I brought up on this show, and I'm going to keep bringing it up because I think it's very, very important that we get this out there for what it is, and that is the idea of getting these schools, these micro schools, kind of like what you call homeschool pods. In other words, where maybe families that want to do it can come together and maybe maybe you take like 2 or 3 maybe families, depending upon the kids they have each, and then have them come together and maybe hire a teacher. And I know
yes.
I talked,
and that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, and I talked to a teacher here that works at the school over here who was waitressing up here at one of the local restaurants here in the area, and she was telling me about the disgusting problem she's having with Odysee. And I told her, I said, you're too smart to be in that system, because I know her. We know her. We know her daughter, and both are brilliant. She's raised her child right. The child is smart, and so I told her, I said, you're too smart to be in that system. I said, well, you ought to be out there doing private tutoring. I said, that way you could do it exactly as you felt like you needed to do it. And she certainly didn't dismiss the idea. And so I told her, I said, there's no reason that families couldn't come together, start what's called a homeschool pod, and then they hire somebody like you to come in and teach the children. And that's an example of what I mean by it's not that hard. All you have to do is any of you that are sick and tired of the schools, the public schools, you just come together. Everybody knows somebody. It may be you, and it may be a sister of yours or a brother that may have some children, and you all think alike, and you want something better for your kids. It might be a niece or a cousin or somebody like that 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 is on the same page as you are. And all you got to do is just call that person on the phone and just tell them, hey, have you ever considered coming together and hiring a teacher? And you could do that because, many hands make for light work. And also many hands make for an easier time in affording to hire the teacher. And so you could have a situation where maybe it's a retired teacher. Maybe a teacher just retired. Maybe she's looking for something on the side to do to supplement her retirement income. Or maybe it's just a teacher who just said, I've had it. I'm done. I'm out of here. And
that seemed to be what happened with Danita. Was after 23 years in the school system, she just realized she could no longer do that, and she made a decision. I think their first year or something, they had like 10 students, and I think they're up to 32 students now in her one-room schoolhouse, and they have a waiting list. So it's obvious that there's a huge need to provide, and they're specifically Christian also. So they're providing not only a well-rounded education, but in a Christian capacity, as well as concentrating on the agricultural aspects of, I guess you'd say, what our forefathers were doing. They knew how to take care of livestock. They knew how to fix tractors and plant things, and So it seems to be an extremely well-rounded education in a manner that protects the innocence of children, which is really paramount right now.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I do have this much. I do have the intro audio from the video on her website. Let's go ahead and run this.
Hi,
Yes.
my name is Danita Meskimen. I'm the owner of the Little Red Schoolhouse in Dinwiddie County, Virginia. 23 years ago, I began my teaching career in public school, and after being tenured in teaching every single grade level, teaching children in special education, general education, I worked as a reading specialist, teacher, mentor, and coach. I saw things in public school that no child should ever see. And it was during my 23rd year that I decided I was going to leave public education and start a little one-room red schoolhouse here at my farm, and it's been the biggest blessing. We started out our first year teaching 10 children here at the farm. This past year, we ended with 21, and this next year, we're starting with 32. And we have a wait list because parents want their children to have a back-to-basics education. What does that mean? Well, we're taking education back to the way our grandparents were taught in a one-room red schoolhouse. Here at the school, children go to school half a day learning their academics. They learn how to read and write, to complete their mathematics. All of our children read above grade level and complete their mathematics above grade level. And then the other half of the day, we're outside learning things that our grandparents learned. How to grow a garden, how to harvest, how to preserve the food. They learn how to take care of animals. They learn customer service when field trips come to our farm. But moreover than that, they're learning work ethic and responsibility, things that our public schools aren't teaching anymore. They're learning through the eyes of a farrier and through a veterinarian, how they can go to school and learn to be a vet and to take care of animals, or maybe just pick up a trade like a farrier and take care of other people's animals and make a good living at that. But moreover, they're learning how to live off the land because they understand that food sustainability is the #1 priority right now. Our parents desire to have their children in a place where their innocence is protected every single day. They learn about Jesus, they learn all things academic, and they learn all things rural. As a result, our children are competing very well with each other. They learn how to get along, they learn how to work together in a community, and they call each other brothers and sisters at school because at the end of the day, they are. They all come back to school every single year, and they love everything that they are learning. If you're looking to build a one-room red schoolhouse where you live, if you understand that our children are under spiritual warfare in our public school system, if you're a proponent of protecting the innocence of our children, if you are a teacher, an administrator, a homeschool parent, or maybe just an entrepreneur, we want you to come to our seminar. I want to partner with you. I want to mentor you. I want to teach you how easy it is to start a little red schoolhouse where you live. You don't even have to use our name. You might have a name that God has already laid on your heart. But if God has told you that this is something you should be looking into, you need to understand that seeing this video is no coincidence. Our paths have crossed for a greater purpose. And it's our job, your job and my job, it's our job and our responsibility to protect the innocence of our children. This is our mission field. We don't need a passport. We don't need beautiful blue waters or to be near an equator. Our mission field is right here in our backyard, protecting our children. If this is how you feel, if you are alongside me, if you agree with me, I want you to reach out. I want you to contact me because I'm going to show you how easy it is to create your own one-room schoolhouse where you live. Maybe you don't have property. Maybe you don't even have a farm. You don't need it. I'm going to tell you how you can start a school without ever building anything at all. I need you to contact me today. Look at our website before you go any further. Our website is www.theredbarnfarmva.com. And then once you look at our website, I want you to give me a call. Let's partner. Let's get you here in Virginia. Come to my 2-day seminar. And let's talk about how easy this is for you to create in your community. Thank you.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
yep.
What I really appreciate about what Danita was saying, and she was just being very honest, is that the schools are a battlefield. It's spiritual warfare there, and so very many parents, whether they're Christian or not, they refuse to admit that what they're dealing with is a spiritual battle between forces of good and evil.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to do a whole lot better in a private school setting or in a one-room school setting than you would in one of these systems. I mean, can you imagine how much better off the students would have been during the COVID debacle when that happened, as an example? That's just one of many examples, because I guarantee you there were a lot of us out there that were awake on this subject and would never have put the children through what those kids were put through in the public school system. And that's just one bit of torment that these kids went through back during 2020, during that whole mess, which should have never happened.
You know, I actually believe that we are approaching a Dickensian era in our school system, which could be compared to the schools that were described in many of Dickens's novels. And I know, for instance, C.S. Lewis, he went to schools. They were boarding schools, of course, over in England, but different sexualities were rampant there. Children were often sexually assaulted, and you were lucky if you in the government schools. Yeah, if you came away with an adequate education, and we are fast approaching that here.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and another thing, the late D. James Kennedy said to one time, if you're going to pit a kid against a little kid against a 40-plus-year-old humanist, you're going to be mistaken.
100%. Yeah, the mistaken quote-unquote Christian view that our children are to be salt and light.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost criminal, in a spiritual way, because children are not equipped to fight against these sorts of things.
No.
It's the parents who are. And to send the children to the front lines is...
It's almost cowardice in a way. It's so you can stand behind your kid and say, yay, look at me.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So...
Well, I can tell you even back when I was a kid, and Trish and I both have varying stories on this, but I know certainly when I was a kid, the schools weren't really what they should be even back then. And my only saving grace was getting into a special help class due to the fact that I was slow in some subjects, particularly math and to some extent in spelling, but mostly math. And, of course, part of the problem with spelling for those of us in the blind schools is that they taught us in what was called grade 2 and grade 3 Braille. At least they did in our school.
Grade 2. Grade 3 was for the elite blind students. Grade 3 was for the smart ones that could catch on.
But they did both in our school. And the problem is that in those environments, words are abbreviated. There are abbreviations because Braille books are so much bigger than the print book. I mean, for example, encyclopedia. Let's see, how many volumes, Trish? They say that
the encyclopedia is 145 volumes.
In Braille.
Yes.
So compare that to a print book, Gretchen, to give you an idea. And
right.
So what they do is they would abbreviate words. They would use certain abbreviations. They might use
They used grade 2 abbreviations, yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have the whole spelling of the word. So
then when you have signs and contractions, and it confuses you when you're learning how to spell a word.
Yeah, and so that was part of the problem. But the second part of the problem was the fact that in so many cases you had teachers in those schools that really were not adequately taught how to teach. And then when you add a disability onto it when you can't see, like, for example, trying to teach somebody where a country is on a globe is nothing like in real life. I mean, a globe, all it is a ball with a bunch of designs on it.
You feeling a globe and touching it with your fingers is different than you walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's just stuff like that they didn't know how to bridge. And so in my last couple of years of schooling, I happened to get into a situation where I was in a special help class, and the teacher that I had just happened to be as blind as I was, which was the best thing that could have ever happened. I've told this story before, so our regular listeners are probably already familiar with it. But for our new listeners out there, since we have so many online listening tonight, I will tell it so they will get an idea. This gentleman, his name was Richard Adams, and I have nothing but the greatest respect for him. In fact, so much so that Trish and I went and visited him long after I was out of school. We made it a point to go up to Decatur, Illinois, where he was living at the time. We went to visit him and his wife, had a good time. And but anyway, he used to teach us things in the class as blind people that most people would never even think about. In a couple of cases, one of them was he took us out to the school parking lot and he asked us, he said, all right, I want you to tell me which car is a darker colored car, which car is dark and which one is light. And of course, right away, the first thing you're thinking is, well, I'm a blind person. How am I supposed to know that? But then you start remembering, well, he is too. So
you're not going to get one over on him.
Yeah. So anyway, so I laid my hand on one car, and it was like, ouch, burned my hand. It was hot. This is like on an 85, 90-degree day, and the car had been sitting out there in the sun for quite a while. But then I laid my hand on the other car, which was to my right, and it was just warm. And I told him, I said, well, I can't lay my hand on the left one, but I can on the right one. He goes, that's the point. He said, the warm one is the lighter one. The darker one is the hot one. He said, remember that now when you go to get clothes for different seasons. He said, remember that when you get paint for a house, you want your house not to absorb the heat. You're going to paint it a light color.
Colored, yeah.
He said, if you want the house to absorb heat, then you're going to paint it a darker color, albeit it's going to make it hotter during the summer. But but that was just one of the neat lessons that he taught us, and it's just something that nobody ever would think to teach in the regular graded classes. The second one that he did was he showed us how a blind person could tell when a pot of water was about ready to come to a boil. And it's the little things you don't even think about. When you put a pan of water on the stove, you know this, Gretchen, because you cook meals all the time. When you turn that burner on and that pan starts simmering at the bottom, it's not boiling. You're hearing a noise like it's boiling, but it's not.
That's right.
It's just the water at the bottom of the pan making noise, where it's simmering at the very bottom, but it's not penetrated all the way through the pot of water. But what's interesting is that pan progresses to get hotter and hotter. Just before it comes to a full boil, it gets quieter. So if you've never noticed that, next time you go to put a pan of water on the stove, pay attention to just before it comes to a boil, and you'll notice that the sound will start to appear to settle down just a little bit before the water fully comes to a boil all the way to the top of the pan. And it's just stuff you don't think about. And it was stuff like this that used to frustrate me, because when I was in the graded classes, we would have situations where they would teach us things in home economics and stuff like that, but it was all just sitting there reading stuff out of books. And I remember even back then, just as a 14-year-old kid, and I mean, I didn't know even remotely half of what I know now, but I remember making the remark that this isn't really doing us a lot of good if we're not going to have any hands-on. I mean, you can throw all the books at somebody you want, but unless they can take that and put it into practice, it ain't going to do them any good. And
Right.
so when I got out of those classes and got into Rich's classes, that all changed. And fortunately enough, we were able to do that. But the third story that I'll tell for the benefit of our new listeners that he pulled with us was he had us come into class, and we sat down and he started asking us questions about foods, what kind of foods we liked, what we didn't like, ask us what hobbies we liked, did we like sports, did we like this, we like that, and different things like that. And we'd say yes, no, or whatever the case may be, depending upon the subject. And so after he got done asking us these questions, which I thought was very weird, he said, all right, he said, go ahead and get a book out and do, he said, there's several homework assignments you can do. He said, I'm going to go across the hall here for a little bit, and I'll be right back. So he goes across the hall, and he's gone for about 45 minutes to almost an hour. And he comes back in, and he says, okay, I'm back. He says, I want to show you something. So what I did not know, and what the class didn't know as well, was that he had recorded everything that he asked us and our responses. And he recorded them on tape, and he went across the hall, and he didn't use anything special, just 2 off-the-shelf tape recorders like you used to buy back in the 70s and 80s. Remember the typical cassette recorder? They were everywhere. And he just took 2 GE portable cassette recorders, and he pulled a stunt that for us back then was a miracle. What he did was he came back in, he played the tape back of where he asked us the questions, and he had us saying things that we liked, that we didn't like, and everything totally reversed. And it was like, well, how in the world did you do that? You're kind of a mixed, bewildered, and
Yeah, you're wondering what is the verdict of the lesson and all that kind of stuff.
Well, see, what he did was he took the original master tape in which he asked the questions, and we gave the answers, fed that into a second machine, and just basically stopped and started the tape when it was in record so he could insert the answers wherever he wanted them. And he didn't have to use anything special, just 2 tape recorders. And the second one, he just, like, for example, he would start the machine where he asked us what kind of foods do we like, like if we liked ice cream, for example. And he'd let that go on the tape, and then he would pause the tape until he found the answer that he wanted to insert in there. So he could make it sound like we were saying no when we said yes. And he would just insert those wherever he wanted them in the tape. And so he brings it back in, and he's playing this thing back, and we're just absolutely amazed. And he said, at the end of it, he says, okay, he said, I did all this to show you something. Now, keep in mind what I'm about to tell you was this was back in 1972. And he said, I played this whole game with you because he said, there's going to come a day when this will be easier to do than it was for me to do. He said, there will be a day when they will be able to take speech and video and break it down into ones and zeros and do far more nefarious things than what I did. He said, there will come a day when they will be able to take a human body and place a different head on it visually, through video editing and cropping, through Photoshop and all this stuff. Now, keep in mind, we didn't have any of that stuff back then. And he said, they'll also be able to do a far fancier job in editing like I did with that tape. He said, what I did there, he said, the stuff that'll be coming out in the future, he said, will be way more advanced than what I just did. And he said, I'm telling you all this, he said, because when you go out on your own, just be aware of this as technology continues to grow. And here we are. Now we're on the doorstep of AI. And
indeed,
he knew all this stuff all the way back in the early 70s. And that just floored me to this day. But that's just 3 things that he pulled with us that were just absolutely phenomenal that I'll never forget. Not to mention things that I used to do. I was a mechanically inclined kid, so a lot of times after school, everybody accuses teachers of having their pet. I don't know if I was his pet or not, But I certainly went over to his house and helped him with projects after school. I would just sneak out of the school and...
Maybe it was something as simple as you were the most willing to learn.
Yeah, I could have been. But he'd have problems that go on over at his house, typical, things that need to be repaired. One thing I remember was he and his wife had two youngsters. They were about 2 years of age, and apparently, unbeknownst to them, one of them got up on the kitchen table and started playing with that chandelier. Have you ever seen the lights that hang down with a chain that has the little wire
They were
going down
really
through?
noted in a mobile home. You had those a lot there.
Yeah, we got them in ours upstairs too, but they were real prevalent in mobile homes.
Yeah.
They usually had three lights on them, and they hung down from the ceiling on a chain. And then there was a wire that went down through the chain and went into the fixture. Well, apparently the kids had somehow got up there and twisted it and pinched that wire and shorted it out. And so he found out that's what happened. So he asked me if I'd come over and fix it. So came over and restrung it and put it back up there. And of course it worked okay after that. But it's just stuff like that.
I think the wonderful idea for the one-room schoolhouses is that the sky's the limit. If you want to concentrate on a certain area of learning, if you want to deal with kids who have challenges, you can do that. It's just, I think, the ability to tailor these schools, these little micro schools, to the needs of the children is something that should really excite parents who have certain desires or needs for their children.
I agree.
Do you think at this late a juncture we need to introduce Gretchen?
She's a regular. She is a listener, but Gretchen Garrity. Gretchen, you're a regular listener. You listen to the show on a regular basis, and you have been on the show before, but it's been a while, and I keep forgetting as we're listening tonight, we're on the Missouri Freedom Initiative streams. And so there's a lot of people that are not familiar with you, Gretchen, and I forgot all about that. But
well, I'm a former homeschool mom, and I currently have a blog, Right to Win Ozarks, involved in local politics, mainly with the library, the public library system, which it has been in need of some kind of reforms. I could say that. So it's a long, hard process because the Marxists and the communists have made a lot of inroads. Socialist, progressives, whatever you want to call them, they've made a lot of inroads into our public institutions, both through government activity and also through the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that service a lot of government entities. So that's kind of what we're fighting, trying to take back the power of the people.
Yeah.
By the way, I just got a hold of Danita.
Oh.
She is on her way in a bit.
Okay, good deal.
So she said, I'll be over there in a second. In fact, that's the first thing she said when she picked up the phone. She knew it was me.
Okay.
So she'll be over in just a little bit. That's okay. I knew somehow it'd work out. And so we'll just keep coasting along here.
Okay.
Yep, it's all good. So it's not a problem. But anyway, Gretchen's a regular listener and participates in different things that we're doing, and also participates from time to time on here. Great, she makes a great co-host, and so.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you bet. Well, just look at it this way: it's an extension of your journalism expertise.
Oh, yes, anyway.
Oh. Well, it's been a real treat to know you guys and to be able to, communicate with you guys on a regular basis.
I'm just glad we have this platform out here. I mean, I've been at this for years, and I'm finally just coming into prominence. More people are aware that we're doing what we're doing. We're having great guests on the show. Getting a lot of great connections to different guests, and That's what makes this show fun. In fact, when I sent out the posting earlier regarding the show tonight, I said that's one of the great things that I enjoy out of all this is I get to meet great people along the way, and a lot of great subjects. In fact,
I was
Go ahead,
thinking
Trish.
about another application of one of these micro schools. What if you just wanted to pay attention to the kids that were hyperactive, supposedly ADHD and all this stuff? Could we have them make a better excuse for why? I mean, could we have them be more active and
instead just throwing them on dope.
instead of throwing them on drugs? Or couldn't we make them so busy they don't have time to think about hyperactivity? Couldn't we just make them so busy?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the half of the day with this Red Schoolhouse
Yes.
Network, half of the day is geared toward academics,
Yes.
and then half toward outdoor activities.
I think that's great.
And I think that alone would probably cure, 90% of the issues.
Yes, I do too. I think they're manufactured illness to make excuses over. Parents, get off the pity pot.
Yep. Or the other one we hear about all the time is anxiety.
Anxiety.
Everybody has anxiety,
Oh, anxiety.
Yeah. And
They might as well have an anxiety dance where they say, anxiety, anxiety. I'm just teasing, but, it's kind of like that.
well, it drives you nuts because, it's
Drives
like,
me nuts when I've got enough of my
some of the stuff I hear people having,
excuses for mine.
some of the stuff I hear people having anxiety over, I always tell them, try going about 200 miles away from your parents at home and having
Try
to go to
being
school.
shipped away from your parents. Yeah, try. Just try it.
And landing in a strange environment where you know nobody.
Just try it.
Yep. And now I'm old enough that I know how to make acquaintances with people. Now, we live in a world today where you have to be careful about who you get hooked up with.
Yeah, you do.
But when you're older, you should, notice I say should, you should be wiser. And,
Well, you would be if they quit making excuses for every ill they've got.
yeah. And so, that's the thing that that bothers me more than anything else. And I'm just saying, folks, we need to rise above it. Some of the stuff I see people having anxiety over, I'm thinking,
Wow, how come I lived 70 years without it?
Yeah. Well, the only thing
I think kids are trained into having these anxiety issues.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, and the mental health agenda and the mental health system has become absolutely enormous in.
Oh,
the
you
school
wear it like a
system.
badge
So,
of honor. I'm on this
Yeah.
drug. I'm on that drug for this and for that, and I wear it like a badge of honor. Ooh, yuck.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's people when they send their kids off to school these days or whatever, or even elderly people. It
Yeah.
seems like even the elderly today
They wear their
wear their
medicines
diseases like a badge of honor. And and there's certainly enough stuff that we can work around. I mean, there's some things that are harder to fight than others, but you can still do a lot to take care of yourself and try to avoid those things that put you in the mess where you're on 20 different drugs or whatever the case may be. And
you wonder why you're going up a wall and down a wall and up a wall and down a wall. Get off of some of them drugs.
yeah. Well, like I say, I'm glad I'm done with the medical establishment and hope I don't have to, other than that one brush I had last fall. And by the way, that was last fall, Trish, when I had to go in there for that surgery. So on the 22nd, I think, of September when I went in there. And in the long fight afterwards. But anyway, even then, even though the hospital I went into was better than most, I still didn't like the idea of, they had an alarm attached to the bed, so if you got up out of the bed, they would know. You know, I mean, it's like even if you had to get up and just go across the hall to the bathroom, they knew you were getting out of that bed because it set off an alarm, and I'm too independent for that.
Like you couldn't be dependent. It's like set up like a prison, more or less.
That's what I felt like. Yeah. And I was never so glad. I'll tell you what, I don't know if I told you that story or not, but toward the time they discharged me out of there, this nurse that was in charge of helping me get ready to get out of there, I told her, I said, you know, I'm so sick of being in this bed. I need to go for a walk.
But they need to get exercise too.
Yep. I said, I need to go for a walk. And she said, okay, so we can walk around the hospital if you want. I'm telling you, I hit that door and I got outside that door and bam, I was gone. And I tell you what, by the time I whipped around them halls, and because we went down the hall, then made a big steep left, and then went down another hall and made another left, go down another hall, and eventually I came back around to where my room was. By the time I got done, this nurse was just huffing and puffing out of breath.
Yeah, she needs the exercise too, you can tell.
And it was like...
She shouldn't be panting like that. She should be breathing normally.
Well, it's like I said, you know, I had all this energy penned up in me, you know.
Oh, I know. I'm not blaming you for it.
I mean...
But I am blaming. She should not have been in that shape.
I know. But, I mean, I just had surgery the day before. And I was already, bam, I was already gone. And so I thought to myself, honey, when it comes to a walk, be very careful what you ask for.
You just might get it.
Because you just might get it with me. Because I move. I don't waste any time. And but part of the reason I did it was because I got so tired of being treated like I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a vengeful type thing without being vengeful. You know, in other words, without it being real obvious. It was like, honey, I'm going to show you what I can do.
Yeah, that I really do follow direction.
And then some. And I walk fast. Now, I don't do it with Trish on my arm. When Trish and I are out walking, I don't do it with her because, you know, she's shorter legged than I am. Well, you've met us, so you know, she's a lot shorter than I am. She comes up to about my chest when she's standing up. And so she got shorter legs, and I have to keep that in mind when we're out walking. But if it's just me by myself, it's like, just gone, you know. And
like a flash in a pan.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just what I'm used to, you know. I mean, I traveled that way, and the other thing about you get used to traveling like that when you live in the big city, because I discovered that if you live in a city, particularly if it's in a crime-ridden area, people don't have a tendency to mess with you as much if you look like you're in command of yourself. In other words, if you act like you know what you're doing, and if you're moving at a nice, good, fast rate of pace, it's not a guarantee, but it certainly does help. The people that they want to pick on are people that are usually, they look like they're either not well, or maybe somebody, well, of course, the problem you got is in cities where you have crime rates and stuff like that, it's the females that have to worry the most, because usually you got the people going after, you know, women. And that's why it's always more important that women definitely make sure they're in command of themselves. But it doesn't matter who you are. You want to make sure you're in command of yourself so that it at least appears to the assailant that you know what you're doing and that you're not going to monkey around if he comes to mess with you. You're not going to let him get away with anything. And I'll tell you where I learned that from. I actually had a blind friend of mine when I was living up near Chicago who was out walking home about 1 o'clock in the morning and walked right through a knife fight. And what was funny about this story is that he came up on this and he said, I'm just going to go plowing my way through. So he just beat it. And these guys saw him coming, and they stopped fighting long enough to let him through, and then they started fighting again.
Golly.
So that's where I kind of learned that trick. I thought, well, if it worked for him, it can work for me. And so anyway.
There's all kinds of education, isn't there?
Yeah.
There is, including life itself. half the stuff
And
that
how
I...
you apply things to life is one part of the education.
That's exactly right. I always tell people I went to 2 schools. I went to the school over in Illinois, which was a blind school. The second one I attended after I graduated was the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's sometimes the best school there is, really.
Yep.
yep. Well, have we got anybody else on the bridge? I haven't heard Danita come in yet, so hopefully she'll show up. She said she was going to come,
Yeah.
so we'll just keep coasting along
Maybe
here.
she has to drive a ways to get home or something.
Yeah, I don't know where she was when she answered that line. She might have been somewhere other than where she wanted to be.
Who knew? It's Sunday night. Who knew? She might have been just getting out of church. Who knows?
Well, there is that too. I mean, there is that possibility. There was an article that Tom DeWeese wrote, which I think I posted on the website, which kind of goes along with the story that we're talking about, education. And it's called the growing hopelessness of America's youth. And I posted it because it went right in line with what we are talking about here, kind of. And, of course, the hopelessness of America's youth. If they go to public school, I can understand why they're hopeless.
Yeah.
But
it's a setup to make you feel hopeless.
well, sure.
So
see,
that you're more easily controlled, you see.
well, yeah, you're more easily controlled if you don't have if you don't
have hope.
Yeah.
If you think you need their guidance.
Yeah, that's it. Well, let me go ahead and roll part of this, and we will, we can play this while we're waiting on her to show up. It's not real long.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead and roll this, and we'll come back, and anything we want to cover with it afterwards, we can go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and...
Newswithviews.com. The Growing Hopelessness of America's Youth. Tom DeWeese. 8 to 10 minutes. By Tom DeWeese. September 6th, 2025. Is the American dream dead? Well, here's a shocker. Your children may never have a family and own their own home. According to a new report from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, right now, today, only 12% of 30-year-old Americans are married and have a home of their own. Representative Greene is working to stop the growing crisis for younger families. Here is her chart that clearly exposes it. A graph showing the growth of a couple of years' AI-generated content may be incorrect. Marriage and home ownership were never just personal milestones. They were sovereignty anchors, forms of decentralized power that rooted individuals in community. They were family. They were the means for building personal family wealth and independence. In other words, family and home ownership are vital to our culture, our society, and to our freedom and independence. But ever since the climate change, sustainable development hoax was launched, private property has been the central target. And now our younger generations are coming face to face with the result. There is no room for their hopes and dreams or a future they can plan on. They can't buy a home. Many can't even afford skyrocketing rental costs. The American dream cannot exist under this disaster. I've reported to you several times about the growing attacks on private property. The attack is led by the radical green movement that has taken control of community development, all under the lie that we have an environmental crisis. Under that scare tactic, they have us voluntarily accepting outrageous development controls in our communities. Large homes have become environmentally incorrect. McMansions that use too much energy. Of course, that doesn't count the globalist elite's massive estates. As smart growth programs began to take control of planning policy in many cities across the nation, single-family neighborhoods became a special target. Of course, smart growth is about control of development as it denies personal choice for us. Its main focus is to move people out of the rural areas and suburbs into the inner cities. 15-minute cities. In such a plan, there is no room for traditional two-story homes and yards. No cars, no need for a garage. The new housing plan is for high-rise apartments squeezed together in an urban setting where few cars are necessary as you walk or ride your bike to the store and take public transportation to work, all under the disproven fear tactic of climate change. But how do you get people to accept such a major change in life? Create a crisis, of course. The new claim is that we have a housing shortage. Proponents of the scheme declare, we can put 100 families in the space of your house and yard that today only holds 4 people. The main question that must be asked is, do we really have a housing shortage? If so, why? Aren't home building companies able to keep up with demand for housing? And why aren't homes affordable to the average American? The answer is, we don't have a housing shortage, we have a government interference problem. For the past several decades, the government has been working to limit home building. Urban sprawl, they call it. To protect the environment, we can't have single-family home development spreading all over the place, but we can have thousands of stack and pack housing instead. So, many communities have put up urban growth boundaries around the city and allow no growth outside that line. The poster child for this practice is Portland, Oregon. Over 20 years ago, the city installed such a boundary, and the restrictions have barely changed. But the population has grown by almost 80%. Now Portland has a government-created housing crisis. It's now happening in cities across the nation. So, the drive is on to destroy single-family neighborhoods and replace them with apartment buildings. This is government-controlled housing. Personal choice is gone. Next comes massive inflation created over the past few years from out-of-control government spending. As a result, local governments are raising property taxes. Even for the few single-family homes being built, interest rates are soaring, making them unattainable for most, especially for younger families seeking to begin building their lives. As new home sales decline, rentals are the only choice. But the high interest rates, inflation, and property tax increases are affecting rental properties as well. Today, even a small rental apartment costs about as much as a home mortgage, that is if such homes are available, which is often not the case. None of this is accidental. It's all being purposely engineered for top-down control over our entire population to dictate how we will exist under the lie of environmental tyranny. Controlling how and where we live is the way they intend to control our energy use, our food supply, and where we travel and how we get there. The older generation, the baby boomers, did not face this when they were planning their lives. They were enthusiastic about building their future. They decided who and what they wanted to be, and they went for it. Most simply started with a small apartment, perhaps rooming with some friends. Then when meeting their future love, all was in place for them to move forward with their lives. They enjoyed a sound economy, a free market that supplied all that was necessary for a fulfilling life, including good jobs, available transportation, and affordable homes. That was the American dream in the greatest country in the world. Just think about the changes that have taken place since the 1960s, when the family home was most attainable. Back then, the median family income was $9,867 per year, and the average home cost $27,000. A car cost about $2,500. A new mom could stay home and raise the kids while dad brought home a single income to keep everyone happy. Today a family needs an annual income of almost $100,000 just to exist, with no hope of building for a better future. Where do young people get that kind of money as they are just starting out? Buying a home may cost as much as $500,000 if it's even available, and car costs begin around $30,000. Is it then a surprise to hear young people expressing absolute hopelessness as they try to plan their future? What are young folks to do? I have talked with several young people lately about the situation, and they expressed great frustration. Hopelessness is the word most often heard now by young people who want to get married and find a home of their own. How can they afford to have children? This is now the reality facing our nation. The radical left-green movement is determined to destroy that dream, and they are succeeding. The question, of course, is what do we do about it? The one thing we cannot do is simply say, well, President Trump will fix it. He's one man, and we are controlled by a massive movement that has invaded at every level of government. We need to be there too. I have dedicated my life to fighting these radical forces and their drive for control. I know who they are, their agenda, and how they have worked tirelessly to put it into force. The good news is that today more Americans are starting to understand the threat and are looking for ways to stop it. The most important thing we must do is build pressure at every level of government to demand they restore property rights. That is the key to freedom. Property owners must have the right to say no to pressure from huge, powerful corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard that are leading the way in destroying private property as they make millions buying up single-family homes to tear down and build the rental buildings that are taking over suburban neighborhoods. The massive use of eminent domain to simply take property is pure theft. It must be stopped. Property taxes controlled by rising inflation must be eliminated. Your city council members, county supervisors, and state legislators must learn that those private non-governmental organizations, NGOs, who now surround them in pressing passage of this terrible legislation are the enemy of freedom. Elected representatives at all levels of government have got to be challenged. Who do they represent? America's future depends on your concern, your actions, your refusal to accept this organized tyranny that works to control locally elected government and eliminate the very root of American freedom, private property ownership.
All right, there you have it. That's Tom DeWeese's article. And by the way, he's with the American Policy Center. If you're wondering, I should try to get him booked because he's been fighting this stuff for years. I mean, longer than I can remember.
Yeah.
But he's been fighting.
Ever since I've been in this, in the alternative talk show circuit, you know, he's been fighting it, and it's been longer than that.
Yeah, I think the lesson out of all of this, and I know it's hard for all of us because we think we're never getting anywhere, but sometimes a fight has to be long, enduring. I mean, one of the things, my core interest is property taxes, fighting against that. Gretchen, you going to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you didn't have something you wanted to say there. But this is why everybody needs to pick a subject. You can't fight everything. You know, you can't just say, well, I'm going to take on every subject out there. You're not going to do it. You're going to wear yourself out trying to take on everything. Pick a subject.
That'll wear you out soon enough.
Yeah. Education is one. Yeah, education is one, like what we're talking about tonight. Property taxes is another, because that's how they'll run you out of your property. Tom is absolutely right.
That's for the darn schools that we're paying these damn property taxes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they demand more and more and more. And the problem is too many people don't stop to demand their schools be better. They just accept the fact that, you know.
They say, well, by golly, my kids are going to get an education. Are they? Or are they going to get an indoctrination?
Oh, we had one lady throw a fit. We were up at a local restaurant here back during the school bond days, and this lady was sitting there eating, and we were talking about getting rid of property taxes and fighting the school bond and all that.
They wanted to build a...
They want to build the performing arts
center.
Yeah, fine arts center type thing.
Performing arts.
Yeah. And this woman just threw a fit.
Because we said they shouldn't have it.
Yeah. And I'm saying, but who's paying for it?
Yeah, who is?
Should I be forced to pay for it? And she started just throwing an absolute fit. And I just told her as she started to walk out the door, I said, honey, I said, you'll get a whole lot more sympathy if you behave yourself and talk civilly. And she just walked out the door. And that was the deal with that. But in any event, there are people out there. Socialism has worked itself very well into the system.
Socialism is rampant.
Yeah.
That's what's causing all these problems.
And the assignment for everybody out there is go and download the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto.
Find out which government agents support them.
Yep.
Every government agent will support them.
Yep. Eliminating your right.
I think there's...
Go ahead, Greg.
You know how we're dealing with a spiritual warfare. I think that among parents, especially dealing with school systems, there is a great deception that is practiced upon them, and their busy lives where both parents are working just to keep food on the table and roof over the head. It kind of precludes them from being able to think outside the box about how to get outside of the school system. The school systems know that. The school systems are run very, very tightly by socialist and communist policies.
That's right.
That masquerade as DEI and SEL and
Yeah,
and
but it's the
CRT
same.
and
It's all the same stuff. A polymanure, no matter
yes.
which way you call it.
well, and we have, for instance, in our the Ozark School District down here, it has been a wild ride for one individual who was voted in on the school board and has been opposed by the rest of the school board members. And no matter how well she presents arguments, no matter what, if you have people who are in lockstep with these non-governmental organizations and with guidelines and with the system that is set up to make school boards simply a rubber stamping entity rather than an actual governing entity, you can't win. You really have to flip these boards or you cannot win. And that is a monumental effort that takes a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think if more people would be involved, it would make it a lot easier on those who are fighting. Many hands make for light work. I mean, look at the situation you went through with the library situation. How many of you in total were there fighting this?
Well, I mean, we were blessed. We had a pastor who stood up to the county commissioners and asked them to begin choosing the rightly qualified people who were actually representative of the citizens in Christian County. And he defied them to their face, and that kicked it off. And we end up with, I mean, typically every month we'll have anywhere from 30 to 50 people that attend the meetings that are on the side of citizens who want to clean up the library. You have others on the other side, but they usually are vastly outnumbered. Mm-hmm. And when things are really heating up, we've had upwards of 100 people show up. So we have been very, very fortunate that we've had very engaged individuals. We've had people willing to put up with the malarkey that goes on. And believe me, it's not just lawsuits. It's defamation. Mm-hmm. It's doxing. You know, it's all kinds of stuff that go on because these entities that are running things do not want their power taken from them. They don't want to give back power to the people.
Yeah.
So it's very much a spiritual battle. So again, we were blessed with a large group of Christians who have been faithful in the battle.
That's wonderful.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to Danita. She said she was coming. I don't know if I should try to call her back. I mean, I don't want to keep bugging her.
Maybe she can't get in. Maybe there's something that she's not sure how to get in or
Maybe
something.
she didn't.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me see what I can do here. Let me bring her up one more time. Let's see what we get here. It's ringing. Let me see if I get her here. It's still ringing. Yeah, Danita, you having trouble getting in? Okay. You have the phone number? Yeah, she said she tried calling several times, guys, and she couldn't get through. Let me give you the phone number so that, make sure you've got it right. You ready to copy? That's okay. And by the way, we still got plenty of time. Okay, it's 609. That's the area code. And then the phone number is 663-4270. All right, see you in a bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she might have been dialing. I hope she didn't get confused and was dialing the studio line number because we're not on. She's not. So I gave her that number. So
maybe she'll get in.
Yeah. So I thought maybe she was having trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see if she checks in here in just a bit. But anyway, she said she kept calling, and Colin was having trouble getting through. But I'm wondering if she was trying to call the studio line.
Yeah, probably so. Hi.
There's Danita. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fine.
Fine.
Welcome to the broadcast. It's so good to have you.
And we have Gretchen Gertie, and we have Sam, and this is Trish.
This is my wife, Trish, is talking to you now. So,
Hi, I'm Danita. I'm glad to meet you all.
well, glad to meet you. Glad to meet
Nice
you
to
too.
meet you too.
Absolutely. Well, we've
Let's start with you.
been certainly talking about education as a subject before you came on. We're definitely filling time, but let's start out with how you got started in the one-room Little Red Schoolhouse project. What led you to get into the one-room schoolhouse?
Well, there's a lot of ideas here, a lot of things that kind of just grew out of the public school system that did not align with my beliefs and my values. But towards the end of my career, 23 years in the public school system, I had taught every grade. I had 3 or 4 degrees at that time, and then I had worked as a reading specialist, special education teacher, general education teacher, administrator, dean of students. And so all these positions, God had me in, including every single grade level in a public school. And I just didn't understand, why I was doing all this, when my idea was that God was preparing me to be the superintendent of a school division or taking over the Department of Education in Washington, which is laughable for me now because looking at it, I never would have been able to have any of those positions because I don't align with the woke standard and the story. That's where I draw my line in the sand. And so my views would have definitely got me fired because I don't placate a system. But it was in my 23rd year, I was sitting in a high school in the middle of a cornfield, and I had taken a position during COVID after I quit teaching for about 2 months during the summer. I was determined not to go back. And the school district, in the middle of a cornfield, I figured, what could possibly go wrong, Sam? Come on, you're in the middle of a cornfield. You're in the middle of God's country. All these kids are Bible-thumping, Trump-loving, conservative kids. There's nothing that's going to go wrong. And I got into school, and boy, were my eyes wide open. When everybody came back after being gone through COVID, when the kids returned to school, it was beyond ridiculous. Cell phones were a huge issue. Dress code was an issue. Drag queens walking down the hallways. And finally, we had the whole bathroom and gender confusion at our school. So you could be a boy and decide you want to go in the girls' locker room, and that's perfectly fine. And everybody would know that you're not thinking that your gender is confused. But if you say your gender is confused just to be funny, you're going to be able to go in the girls' locker room and nobody can stop you. And they asked me to take duty for the bathrooms in the high school. And I said to my supervisor, my administrator at the time, I said, I'm the wrong person for this job. He said, Dee, you're the only one that's not pulled duty. We need you to pull duty. And I said, you realize what I'm going to do. Like the guys are going in the guys, the girls are going in the girls. There's no confusion here for me. And he said, you cannot get us in litigation. I said, then I'm not the girl for you. He said, look, you have to do it. Don't get us in any kind of litigation. I said, sure. No problem. And so when I went up there to perform my duty, I was pulling the guys out of the girls and the girls out of the guys. I said, look, if you've got any confusion about it, let me go ahead and set the record straight. You're a guy, you're a girl, this is where you go. If you don't like it, find another bathroom. And they would see me on this particular day in the hallway, and they got to a point where they were like, oh, man. And they'd turn around and go down to the other bathrooms. I'm like, good on you. Like, you guys stay down there because I don't want to see it. I'm not going to be part of it. And then one day I had a child in my classroom that was gender confused. She wanted to be called by a boy's name. She wanted to be called by boy pronouns and male pronouns, and I said no. I said, this is my line in the sand. I'm not doing that. the administrators called me in the office, and they said, can you maybe call her by her last, or him by his last name. And I said, you can't even get the story straight. I said, no, I'm not calling her by her last name. Could you just call everybody in the classroom by their last names? I said, you're asking me to placate a situation. I said, the difference between you and me is we're both going to go see Jesus one day, and I'm going to stand before Jesus and say, Lord, I didn't placate a darn thing. Like, I didn't placate a thing for a paycheck. That paycheck was not worth my eternal existence. So look at the next person, because that wasn't me. And I said, you're going to be there, Wendy, or what are you going to say? Because you call yourself a Christian too. And I said, now we got drag queens walk in the hallway. I've got bats walk in the hallway who identify as bats, who dress as bats, who act like a bat that can't even talk. I've got anime characters dressed up as anime characters who don't talk. I've got cats wearing cat ears, drawn-on whiskers, and a tail all day long in school. And you call this education? I said, I quit. She said, just go home. You're not going to quit. I said, watch me. I went back the next day. During my planning period, I wrote my resignation letter, and I looked at it, and I thought, am I really quitting my job? Like, all I know is education. Like, what am I going to do with my life? And I went home, and I cried to God, and I got in the middle of my hayfield, and I said, Lord, I can't do this anymore. Like, what do you want me to do? I know you created my life. My entire existence is to be a teacher and to serve your children, and I'm all right with that. But don't ask me to go back in to the lion's den. Don't ask me to go back into Sodom and Gomorrah and ask me to put on a happy face and lead the people to you. I can't. My spirit is overflowing with lava. I just can't keep my mouth shut anymore. It is disgusting, and I don't like it. And I said, what am I going to do? And I started crying in the middle of my hayfield, and very calmly, the Holy Spirit said, begin a school. And I looked up to heaven, and I said, yeah. I said, great idea. Where would I begin a school at? Where would you have me do that? Like, maybe you want me to be a Walmart greeter. I could be a really good Walmart greeter. I could tell everybody about Jesus. And then the Holy Spirit said to me, here. And I looked up, and the hairs on the back of my neck rose. So they were like standing straight up. And I said, that's brilliant. Like, we could build a school here, and I could teach the kids how to can and preserve and to live off the land. God, I could teach them about you all day and not have to worry about anybody turning me in, because I look at them and say, Jesus loves you, and so do I. I said, no, I'm not. I can't do that anymore. I will quit my job, and I will build a school here. I went in the next day. I turned my resignation in with the happiest face. I actually kind of skipped from the classroom to the administrator's room to give them my resignation, and my supervisor looked at me and she goes, what is this? And I said, it's my resignation. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm quitting. She goes, when? I said, at the end of the school year. I mean, I'm going to stay to the end of the school year. I need to, but I'm not coming back. She said, but you're so close to retirement. Why are you doing this? I said, because I don't want to do this anymore. I said, see, you guys all made this whole propaganda lie up. You made me think that I was supposed to work someplace where I wasn't happy, where I didn't like it, where I was counting down the days, where Sundays were terrible and miserable, and my stomach churned because I didn't want to go back into this lion's den, into the Sodom and Gomorrah of schools. And I didn't want that. I never wanted that. Like, I was going to teach all my life. Like, once a teacher, always a teacher. It's kind of like once a mom, always a mom. And I never wanted to quit. So I don't want to quit teaching, and I don't want to number my years to 30 or 35. I don't want that. Like, I want to teach until I'm 95. That was always in my cards. I never wanted to play cards with you. And so I said, I quit. And she said, but you can't. I said, son, who? She goes, we need you. I said, I know you do. You do need me, but you don't need me, because I'm going to get you in some serious litigation in a heartbeat. I said, I can already tell you that if you all keep pushing the envelope about this whole thing with this girl in my classroom, wanting me to call her by, different pronouns that she wasn't born with, or by her last name or whatever, I said, like, that's just going to become more of a problem for you, because we already have seen what has come out of Loudoun County, Virginia. Y'all know you can't force me to do that. I said, so I don't even want to talk to you about it. I just want to get through the rest of this year. I just want to, I want to leave peacefully. Y'all just continue doing what you're doing. God bless you, and I don't know how you're going to get through it, but God just continue to bless you the best he can in this situation. And so the end of the school year came around, but while we were in school, I went through a lot of ridicule. Like, my colleagues did not understand what I was doing. So there was a lot of discussion in the hallways. There was a lot of mean girls kind of behavior, which was really shocking to me because these are 30, 40, 50-year-old women acting that way, all because they just didn't understand what God had called me to do. And they're like, what are you going to do when you leave? I said, I'm going to build a school. They said, what do you mean you're going to build a school? I said, I'm going to build like a little, big house, a little house in the big woods. I said, it's a Laura Ingalls kind of school, like high-pitched roof, red school, double doors, and it's a one-room schoolhouse. Like, what are you doing, Danita? Do you hear yourself? I said, I do. I said, God has called me to this. I don't expect you to understand the vision that God has placed in my heart. And honestly, I shouldn't even explain it to you because you're not going to understand it. The vision was given to me. I said, but I'm going to go forth, and I'm going to do what God has asked me to do. And then they started coming out of the woodwork. Well, what if you don't have any students? What if nobody wants to drive as far to Dinwiddie to bring kids to you? What if you can't find teachers to hire you? What if you don't have enough money to finish the school? What if and I said, you could what if me to death. But do you remember who I serve, who we all serve? We all call ourselves Christians in here. Like, I serve a king. And he can do anything for me. And if he's called me to this position, you can't doubt it. Like, what God has put in motion, no man can put asunder. You need to just walk away and know that I'm going to be fine. I love you, and I appreciate you, but it didn't go that way. Like, they were so mad because I was quitting, and they were so terrible towards me. So when the last day of school came, the only thing I took out was my purse and my keys. And I skipped out the door. I was like, hallelujah, praise the Lord, I'm on to freedom. And I knew whatever I was going into was going to be 5 million times better than what I was leaving. And so the building here was really tough to get built. We went up against a lot of obstacles here in the county because they truly didn't understand what I was doing. But God won in the end, and the building was erected. And God told me the deadline that we would get our building certificate so that we could have our occupancy certificate to take occupancy of the building. He told me all this. He laid this out in my dreams and called me in the middle of the night in my dreams, called me by my first name and told me when to erect the building, what it was going to look like, what I was going to do inside of it, almost down to the color. I knew the name of the building way before I ever knew I was going to have a school. And that's another story and another day, but God has just been in this story so much. And so when the time came and the children started coming, the first year I had 10 children. The second year I had 21. Last year I had 27. This year I have 37, and I have over 120 children on a wait list, parents banging on the door to get their children here, people all over the United States wanting schools just like this here in their communities. And so about 2-3 years ago, I walked into the school building one day, and I said, God, I love you. I love my life like it's the best life ever. I walk 100 paces from my back door to the back door of the school. I walk into peace and tranquility, and everything is about you. And like, I've never been so happy. The worst day in school here is never going to touch the best day of school in public school. I said, that's how beautiful you have created this life for me, and I'm so grateful. But I got to tell you, I feel something's missing. And I'm not complaining, but I need you to tell me if there's something missing that I'm not seeing. Like, sometimes I'm a little dense. Throw me a bone, make sure I see it, maybe knock me in the head with it, but let me know what it is that I'm missing, because I feel like you and I haven't reached the pinnacle yet. If we have, I'm good. But if we haven't, please tell me what I'm supposed to do. The next day was a couple days later, it was a Sunday, and God woke me up in the middle of the night, and he said, I want you to make a video of the school, of your school day. I said, why? And the Holy Spirit said, just make the video. And so I had tried to make the video, and the app kept crashing on me. And I threw the phone on the couch. I said, I don't want to do this. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. Who wants to get up at 2 a.m. and make a video? And I heard the Holy Spirit say to me, I need you to be patient. and just make the video. I said, fine. So I got in the middle of the couch in the corner, and I made the video again. The app crashed. I said, I'm not doing this for a third time. That's the version of insanity. And I heard God say, please make the video and be patient. And so I made the video. Third time around was a charm. I pushed submit. It went forward. I was in a foul mood that day. I looked at God and I said, I don't want to go to church now, like a petulant child. I said, I just don't feel like going. Like, I'm going to go outside and take care of the animals. I'm going to be in nature. Like, I'm here with you, but I just don't want to go to church and sing today. Don't feel like it. I'm kind of in a sourpuss mood. And so I went about my day and I took care of the animals and said good morning to them all and loved them and hugged them. And then I heard the Holy Spirit about noon say, pick up your phone and look at the video. And I said, why? And this is how the Holy Spirit and I communicate all the time. My husband says it's ridiculously crazy, but he loves it and he understands it. It's just our conversations are so open. And I said, why do you want me to look at my video? And he said, just look at the video, Danita. And I opened it up, and the video had gone viral. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And I said, so now what is this? Am I like a one-hit wonder? Like, I made a video, obviously, with your direction. I did everything you said, and now it's gone viral, but I don't understand the purpose behind a viral video. Like, I don't need to be popular to do what I'm doing. And so the Lord said, I want you to sit down and read the comments. And so I got in the middle of the couch again, and I started reading the comments, and I just started crying. It was people all over the United States and the world saying, we need a school like this in Oklahoma. We need a school like this in New Mexico. We need a school like this in Illinois. We need a school like this in Detroit. I was like, oh, my gosh. There were over 500 comments at first. And I said, God, I can't even get through all this. What am I supposed to do with this? And the Lord said, go to your preacher. I want you to go talk to the preacher. So I went to the preacher and I talked to him. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? He said, I know just the person that's going to help you with this. He said, girl, he said, you have got a good thing on your hands right now. I took a ream of paper into him of all of the emails that had been sent to, most of the emails that had been sent to my email account. I printed them, and they were one-page emails front and back. And he said, what is this? And I said, oh, these are just the emails. Like, I haven't even started with the DMs in my inboxes. And I said, I don't know what to do. This is overwhelming. And so I got involved with his daughter, who helped me for a little while, got me on my feet. I realized that God wanted these schools all over the United States. And I told God, I said, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. Like, you've given me such a beautiful gift here to teach your children. And it's a gift that just keeps growing. And I feel like everything I'm doing is exactly what you want me to do. And I want to make sure that I please you, and I want to make sure that I serve your children. So whatever you ask of me above and beyond, yes, I'll do it. I'll never hesitate. And so then we started putting schools up. It was so overwhelming, so much to do. Attorneys got involved, contracts got involved, and it just grew so quickly. It was at an overwhelming pace. There were times I just had to sit back and ask myself, is this my life? Like, God, but you pulled me out of some place where I was counting the days to quit a job, to retire, to do what? I don't know. Because I was always supposed to teach. Like, my goal was to teach until the age of 95. And then the day that they tell me I can no longer teach, I'll probably go someplace into the house, grab my alpaca yarn, start crocheting an Afghan, and probably just close my eyes and go to heaven. That's the way I see my life. Because when I quit teaching, there's really not a whole lot more left for me to do, because that's all I know to do is to teach God's children. We teach during field trips here. We teach children that come for summer camp. We teach children that come for other activities, and then we've got the school. Like, so this is all I've ever known. And so I said, whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do. And now we've got 30 schools going around the United States. We've got another seminar coming up in October where we're trying to get people on board, trying to keep that momentum and to keep the narrative out there and to keep it open, not to keep it under a bush. Like, here we are, we can help you. You can create a school as early as next August. I did it with $300 in my pocket. Like, I had nothing. Like, literally, I had nothing. When we started the school, before I left the school, when I was teaching high school, during my planning period after I had turned in my resignation, I bought a building online out of North Carolina. And the guy said, what are you going to use the building for? I said, I'm going to build a school. He said, never had that happen before out of one of these buildings. I said, look, I can't tell you about it. All I can tell you is God told me to call you, and this is what we're going to build, and I need you to help me. Will you help me? He said, Danita, we're a Christian company here. Of course we're going to help you, whatever you need to do. And I said, of course you're a Christian company. God's not going to send me to somebody who's not a Christian. Hello. I should have known that when I called you. And so since then, he's helped me put 5 other buildings on our property. They're so good to us. Other people are going to use them to put up their buildings too that don't already have a building. But like the way this all came about was just so miraculous. We didn't have our building ready when school started in August, our first year, and so I called my preacher friend and I said, hey, you've got a rather large church there with a lot of education space you're not using. Do you mind if I come and use it with my school group? He said, you can have anything we have, Danita, but why would you want to come across town when you can just go across the street to the building that's across your farm? I said, sir, that's a Methodist building. Those people don't even know me. He said, but I bet if you call them, you can open the door. And I said, well, that's truth. I said, let me call them and see what they have to say. Sam, I called them and I said, hey, I need a place for my children to have school. I said, look, I love cleaning and I love organizing. I'll give it all back to you. Your building will be clean and organized every single day. I won't leave anything messy. My kids are really great children and I will oversee everything that they do in the church. We just need a place to pray. We need a place to learn about Jesus, learn our academics, and then we're going to walk across the street to the farm halfway through our day because we're not going to stay in the building all day. May we use it? And the lady, she said, you're not going to believe this, but we just left a meeting where we were thinking, how can we become more active in our community? We only have 6 members attending this church. The youngest member is like 53 years old. How can we become more active in the community? And here you are calling us. I'm like, of course I'm calling you right now. Because God had already been in my tomorrows. He knew that you were going to have a door wide open for me. And so we started at this little white church. I just posted today in a video on my social media, this little quaint white church that's over 2 centuries old. It's so beautiful. I would love to turn it into a preschool if the church will ever sell it to me. It's an old Methodist building that is so precious. And we've spoken since then about turning it into a preschool, but the church doesn't want to remove their furniture upstairs for the preschoolers, so we're sort of at an impasse right now. And they're down to 4 or 5 members now that are attending their church. So hopefully they'll let the children come there because they would be the youngest members inside that building. And I know the people, if they could come back in time, they would just be tickled pink knowing that there are children in the church again. But that's how we got started, Sam. That's where we're at. Those are some of the obstacles that we faced, and that's where we're at today as far as trying to gain momentum. My goal is to just make sure, even with my weekly blog that I send out, I send a couple of messages out a week, just reminding people of what's going on, telling them about what's going on in New Jersey, telling them what's going on in Loudoun County, Virginia still, when they're still saying, even after the federal government has told them to change their behavior, they are still saying, hey, we're going to let children decide what bathroom they want to use, what gender they are. I mean, your president has pretty much told you to knock it off. Well, you're going to lose your federal funding. And our governor has said the same thing. And then they have been so rebellious in stating that they're going to allow children to still do it. But even after all that, we still have pornography in all of our schools in Virginia. It's still there. It's not been removed.
Danita, hi, it's Gretchen. So nice to meet you. Your story is so inspiring. And I was just thrilled to hear you say in your video, your short video, that that there is spiritual warfare going on
Absolutely.
in our schools, because that is the crux of the matter. And you've actually touched upon it. You were experiencing it. And so to know that you've been able to start this system here with the Red Schoolhouse Network is just wonderful. But I appreciate very much that you saw early on that it was a spiritual battle. Can you explain to parents why it is not a good idea to send their children into the schools to be salt and light?
Because our children do not have the full armor of God on. They don't have it. They don't understand it yet. They are not prepared for that kind of battle. They go in these schools just like when I went to college. It happened to me, and even my own daughter, when we went to college at different times in our lives got turned upside down because they told us something that was contrary to what we had been told all of our lives. Just reading Paradise Lost by John Milton, that was enough to turn my world upside down. But our children are in spiritual warfare, and let me tell you what that looks like for a kindergartner. As a supervising teacher, I walked into a teacher's classroom one day, and I knew that she was bisexual, and I knew that she had a partner that was female, and she had her picture on the desk holding their child. And this little girl, I was waiting to talk to the teacher, and the teacher was talking to her students, and one of the little girls interrupted and said, is that your sister? And she says, no, baby, that's my wife. And she goes, silly, you can't have a wife. You can have a husband. And she goes, no, honey. 2 women can get married, and one of them can be a wife. You should have seen that little girl's face. Her face went blank while she's trying to process that. I was like, honey, come over here, sweetheart. Let me help tie your shoe. I was like, dear Jesus, this child is losing her innocence right now in the middle of the battlefield, and she doesn't even know. Her mama doesn't even know that these conversations are being had. I have walked into classrooms when they're asking little children, 5 and 6 years old, what pronoun do you want to be called by? Counselors are going in and teaching them about Pride Month. When my children went to school, they were teaching them about all this sensitivity that they had to be sensitive to, the gender studies. I'm like, you've got to stop this right now. And parents could not opt out of it. I pulled my kids out. I said, well, first of all, you don't get to tell me I cannot opt my child out, and my child will not be attending school. Thank you. Count it as an absence, whatever you need to, but my child is not coming to school.
Amen.
And my children didn't understand. It was sad for them. But this is what our children are going through right now. And then you have a child sitting in class calling himself or herself by a pronoun that doesn't even refer to their biological gender.
Yeah.
How do you confusion is tearing apart our children. It's stealing their childhood.
I had a question for you to Danita. What happens when you're in school and you have one of your teachers has an issue with an ex-husband and can't get on other things because she's afraid to, or whatever the case is? What do you tell that teacher?
When they what?
Well,
when they have a problem with an ex-husband?
Yes, an ex-husband.
Well, first of all, when I was supervising teachers, they did not get to bring their personal life into the classroom. You're not taking personal calls on the classroom. You're not sharing this information with children. You're there to teach. I don't need children to know about your personal life. And if you've got a reason to leave the classroom, then let me know. I'm going to come down and cover for you so you can go take care of that personal situation inside the teacher's lounge or wherever you need to go. That's the way we should handle that tactfully, because there are just so many things that children do not need to know.
That's right.
Children already go through.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I just
children go through a lot of stress right now in school, and they go through a lot of stress in our homes. So many families are have broken marriages. It's a terrible situation for a lot of our children. And now we're going to add even the spiritual the warfare for them, that whole entire background where they're supposed to make sense of all this gender confusion and the cross-dressing confusion, and then you've got all the books in the library. It's just ridiculousness. And you know, our governor, we're supposed to be so excited because he's all about our parents having authority over our children, but he's not. He's not done a knockout, bang out job of telling parents that they have an opportunity to opt out, but even that opt out of all the pornography in our school districts is weak at best, because this is how it happens. Mary's mom knows about the opt-out form. She signed it and says, oh, gosh, Mary's never going to get her hands on that. But little Johnny's mom is clueless. She's working 2 jobs. Dad is not in the picture. She's trying to put bread and milk on the table. And so she doesn't have time to keep up with what the school's going. She sends Johnny to school as a form of babysitting and to get his education.
Yep.
It's a 2-stop shop. And so then Johnny, he's at school, and he gets into this pornography because his mom didn't opt out. And then he forges her signature so that he can see it. He gets the book on the bus, which everybody gets on the big yellow bus because parents think that that's a great, safe place for their children to be. Johnny's in the back seat. He says, oh, my gosh, would you look at this? And Mary comes running because she wants to see what everybody else is running toward, and she sees the graphic pictures. I had to look at them myself because I really didn't believe it until I saw it. It was enough to make me blush. And I thought, Lord have mercy. Why are we even putting this in schools? Why do we have to show sexual positions for people that are with the same-sex people? We don't need to do that. That should never be in school. It was never in school for a boy and a girl. Why is it in school for 2 girls or 2 boys? Why are we having those discussions in books? Why do we feel that that's appropriate? That is pornography. It's terrible. And so now Mary's childhood has been stolen from her. You're never going to get that back. You're never going to erase that from her head. You're never going to erase from the head the little girl who found out that 2 women can get married and have a baby. How are you going to explain that when she just left Sunday school the day before and found out that Noah took on the ark 2 species or 2 genders, a male and a female, to repopulate the earth?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
How are you going to explain that after you've just taught them about the first marriage in the Bible of Adam and Eve? How do you get there? How do you go farther with her? Everything that she has been taught has now been dismantled, and she's going to have so many questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's gotten so bad here, Danita, where we are, that we're starting to see sex offenders out here in this area. I mean, we've had...
And they put them out on a list where everybody can see them.
Yeah. I mean, this is what this kind of stuff brings. And it's amazing the amount of people that tolerate this stuff. And this is why I love your story. I love your story, and I love your stamina, the way you're willing to stand up. I mean, obviously it's God that's behind you on all this, but I love the fact that you're not afraid to stand up against this kind of stuff. And parents should learn from what you're talking about. Part of the reason we're in the mess we're in is because we have several problems. One, people don't like confrontation, so they're not willing to stand up. We also have a discipline problem. I can't tell you how many times I've been around where I see kids mouthing off to their parents in ways that I would have never dreamed.
I've never gotten away with some of that.
And it just goes on and on and on. And I'm thinking, if you send your kids into these cesspools, and don't be surprised when they disrespect you. And, of course, at the root of it all, we've taken God out of everything. Mm-hmm. And some of these kids, they don't even know the first thing about what God expects of them, let alone about God in the first place. And so it's no wonder we're in the mess we're in. I mean, basically, I kind of take this like a ship that just lost its moorings. It's just drifting a sea wherever it's going to go, and just wherever it winds up is wherever it winds up, because there's no particular direction other than, of course, downhill, I guess, if you want to take it that way. But that's about
Sam,
it.
I see things a little bit more sinister than that.
Yeah.
I think this was all planned.
Yeah.
I think that the moment technology became so advanced and it started to go into the hands of our children, and then our schools started buying it for children and demanding that parents sign off on it, the devil sat back and said, man, you just made my life so easy. I can't tell you how many I can't even speak tonight. Pornographic movies my students in high school and junior high used to see on their tablets and on their Chromebooks. And I used to think, how in God's name did you get past the firewall? These kids are smart.
Oh, yeah.
They're smart. They're not dumb, and they're going to share it with one another. And then they're going to start sharing it through email. They can get into things. They can send messages, all these things. It's just ridiculous what we did when we put that in their hands. The moment we did that, we just made life easy for the devil. And we've got, if we don't take it back to basics, we're in big trouble. But, you know, let's go back to the propaganda that was sold to our grandparents and their families who believed that the government could do this job better than they could.
Yeah, right.
No, you're exactly right.
You're exactly right.
I am still sitting back dumbfounded that we sit back as parents. We get so excited when we have a baby. We go out there and we find the best OBGYN. And you're going to get on Yelp and you're going to get on all the mom groups to make sure you've got one that's really great. The baby's born. Then you find the best pediatrician. Again, you go through your own research again, Yelp, in the moms groups on Facebook to find the best pediatrician. And then you find the best daycare. You're not just going to settle for any daycare. You got to get the best daycare. You got to make sure that she's qualified. And then they hit 5 years old, and you put them on the great big bus, and you say, see ya, you have no idea if the values and the morals of the people that are pouring into your child align with yours. You have no idea who the kids are sitting next to your child. But all these years prior, you have vetted the kids that came to your house. You have vetted the kids that your child has slept over with. You have vetted all of this because you wanted to protect your kid. And then you send your child to school because we've all been conditioned by the government to say this is normal. None of this is normal.
No, it's not.
It's going to take years and generations for parents to wake up and say, what did my parents do? I'm so grateful I got out unscathed. But now it's to a point where we can't even fathom that, because whatever we're teaching them during Sunday night, Wednesday Awanas, or whatever we're doing at home, and a few prayers we say maybe at dinner before they go to bed, it's not enough to cover them. It's not enough to give them what they need to get through that battle. They can't do it.
No, you're right.
They're just children.
Yeah, they are. My parents, if they sent us away to school because education had to be handled different for blind people, learning Braille and that kind of thing. But anyway, they used the education to blackmail, kind of coerce our parents to let us go. They sent me to school at 4.5. I was not ready to.
Yeah, these schools were like 200 miles from home, so it's even crazier that parents would be, but they did. They talked to parents into sending their kids in there.
And this was a communistic setting. You shared and shared alike.
Yeah, you stayed in a dormitory.
Yes.
So you didn't even have the evening hours to come home to. But
no, you were hated 24/7.
Yeah.
If you were hated. You're liked 24/7 if you were liked. But...
You know, Danita, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gretchen, you're going to say?
That's okay. Go ahead.
Well, I love how you are focusing on going back to the old paths, right? And could you describe kind of a typical day for your classroom?
Gladly. The children arrive somewhere around 7:45. By 8 o'clock, we're all in circle holding hands saying prayer to God. I try to teach children what prayer should sound like, and it's different for all the children, but I'm also raising prayer warriors at school. These are children that are not afraid to lay their hands on you and to pray in the name of Jesus, and they believe in the Holy Spirit. They believe in Corinthians, and they're not afraid to say it. And so they get up there and they pray sometimes too. I'll look at the ones that are the strongest to lead the smallest because they're setting the example. I've set it for them. Now it's their turn to set it for the youngest. And so after prayer, we say the pledge, and then we go right into Bible. We try to have a good half hour to 45 minutes of Bible. The older kids that go with me, those are grades 2nd through 5th grade this year. And 1st and kindergarten stays with the other teacher, and they're learning songs and Bible stories that we all learned when we went to Bible school. My children are learning the same Bible stories that they've learned for the last 2 years, but we're diving deeper in it every year. At first, they learned about the 7 days of creation. Then they got deeper about the marriage and about sin and what that looks like. And now they're diving even deeper into Genesis, and they love it. They know all 66 books of the Bible, and they know the parts of the Bible as well. After the Bible, we go into our learning stations, and they're about 45 minutes long. We have 3 rotations. Kindergarten stays with their teacher all day, but the other rotations are broken up among first, and then we have second, third, fourth, and fifth. And fourth and fifth are generally taught together. Second and third are generally taught together, and first is on an island of their own because there's so much to learn in first grade. And I want to make sure that the students are all proficient. I take it personally if they're not reading on a third and fourth grade level by the time they leave first grade. So all of our children are proficient in reading and writing. Our older children that are in fourth and fifth grade are all reading on a high school level and writing on a high school level. And that's the way we like it. After that, we have lunch about 11:45, 12 o'clock, depending on what time we get outside, because we always have to clean the building up before we leave. And then it's outside for the rest of the day. We have lunch outside underneath the pavilion, and then we're learning either in our garden. We have an organic garden. We have organic orchards, organic grapevines. We go to an organic orchard to pick our apples because we don't have enough yet this year. And we harvest and we preserve it. So we have a freeze dryer from Harvest Right, and we freeze dry a lot of apples and bananas that are given to us. The bananas are given to us. The apples are all organic. We also prepare our foods through canning, the preservation of canning, like Grandma used to, and the kids love canning. So we can our foods here, and we sell it during Fall Fest, which will be October 4th here at the farm. And then we take care of animals. Some of us take care of the bees. We all have committees. So, we're getting ready to go into the 22nd of September. We're harvesting our honey. It's the first year that the children will be harvesting honey. Almost all the children have bee suits that are in our bee committee. And then they harvest the honey. We also have children outside taking care of all the animals that we have. We are getting ready right now to go to the state fair at the end of the month, the 26th and 27th of the month, or maybe it's the 27th or 28th. I have to go back and look at my calendar. But they're going to compete at the state fair level with all of our poultry. So they're excited for that. They just really work the farm. I don't do chores. I supervise. I have a barn manager who's been in charge of the barn since third grade. She's a fifth grader this year. So she understands what corporate life is going to look like if she goes down that avenue. She says she's going to be an entrepreneur. She helps with a farrier and the vet, and she brings other kids to teach them how to vet and how to perform the duties of a farrier here at the farm as well. She just got done vetting all of our chickens to prepare them for the state fair. We want to make sure that nobody has any mites or lice that will automatically be disqualified. We typically don't have an issue like that, but we have had a little bit of an issue with scaly leg mites, so we've been treating that, and she's been doing an excellent job of teaching kids how to treat that. It's a hard one to treat, and she's been doing an amazing job. And so we have a sourdough committee. They're going to be baking sourdough bread and selling that weekly here at the farm. We have a couple boys that are interested in dirt bikes and want a couple of kids race them. So we've got an old dirt bike here at the farm. I said, hey, I'll buy the parts if you fix it. It was my son's, and it would be great if you fix it. I mean, not only would I be so highly impressed, but gosh, teach the other kids about the parts of a bike. And then I got a guy that just called me yesterday. He's local. He does mill work. He said, I'm a retired mill worker, and I would love to teach the kids how to build. And I said, my gosh, let me give you my honey-do list while you're at it, and we'll just build from the honey-do list. Yes, I think that's an amazing job.
Great.
So, I mean, all the things that the kids can learn to do with their hands. They climb trees. Like, we couldn't get the pears out of the trees. And one of my teachers came from public school, and one of my boys named Taylor, he said, Miss Danita, you want me to go up in that tree and get those pears down? I said, yep, knock yourself out. First he got the ladder to try to get the ones he could, and then he said, do I have permission to climb it? I said, climb away, but just make sure that you don't get on a branch that's weak. Remember, pear trees are not your strongest tree. Yeah. He said, I got it. He climbed up in the tree. I even got him in the video that I posted today where he's shaking, and he said, I don't know how sturdy this branch is, but he's shaking the heck out of that tree and got all the pears down. And the teacher looked at me and she goes, oh, get out of that tree. I said, it's okay. I said, here at the farm, they're allowed to climb trees. They're allowed to climb over logs and jump and run and climb up into the hayloft and do crazy things. I said, they're good. They're kids. I said, we've already had a broken arm here because a little boy jumped out of a swing when I clearly have said 100 times, don't jump out of the swing because you might break your arm, and he broke his collarbone. His mom, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I tell the kids all the time, don't jump out of the swing. She said, Danita, they're kids. They're going to get a broken arm. They're going to break a collarbone. I'm not mad. I mean, they're being kids. And it was hard for me at first because that was my second year here as the owner of the Little Red Schoolhouse. It was hard for me to even have a paradigm shift. Now I look at the teachers and I say, look, it's okay. The parents want them to be children. I said, if you walk into a mall, if you walk where there's a place where a lot of children congregate, you're going to find that not very many of them anymore have broken arms and broken clavicles. They just don't anymore because they're so busy in front of screens. Kids don't get out and jump anymore. When I was growing up, we always had skinned knees and skinned elbows, and my brother hurt his chin. My sister had stitches in her eye, above her eyebrow. So I said, these are things that happen because you're kids and you're running and you're jumping and you're playing and your parents try to protect you. But here we want kids to run and play and jump. We've had kids kicked by horses before and donkeys and alpaca. And I just look at them and say, hey, a kick was better than a bite. Ruck up, camper. I mean, it's part of your childhood dealing with animals. You're going to get kicked. You're going to get bit. Anytime that you're working with an animal, you got to be on your guard. And so these are the lessons and the stories that they're learning. One of the children was cutting jalapenos the other day so we could make jalapeno candy. It's so yummy. We can it every year. And I looked at him. I said, hey, Nay. I said, you can cut jalapenos. I'm all right with that. But listen, don't touch your lips. Don't touch your face. Don't touch your eyes. Keep your hands down. When you're done, take Palmolive or Dawn dish soap and rub your hands for like 5 minutes underneath that water, or you'll be sorry. What did he do? He touched his eyes, and he came to me, and he had tears coming out of his eyes. And he goes, what do I do? And I said, you continue to cry. I said, God gave you the best medicine for your eye. I said, if I had some milk, I'd put it in your eye, but I don't have any raw milk here right now. It's all gone. But that's what you have to do. You just have to learn from your mistakes. And so that's part of childhood. You get to make your mistakes. You get to learn. You learn not to get so close to a cow, or you learn not to get close to the alpaca, or you learn to wear the proper footwear when you're dealing with the horse so you don't get stepped on and hurt your feet. These are the lessons that they learn, and they're lessons that are going to carry them throughout life. And their parents are so happy. My parents don't leave school here unless they're being moved.
Well, I'm sitting here with the biggest smile on my face because just hearing you talk about all this stuff, I'm thinking, man, if I had a school day like that, I'd be the happiest camper in the world. And we didn't have any of that. And
no, we didn't get busy enough.
No, and we should have. I think. I always tell people, I'm just blind, not stupid. And I'll tell you,
I think you guys need a do-over. How about you guys come to the farm and we'll give you a whole day of a do-over?
Hey, I wish I'd get out there. It'd be a lot of fun. If I could get out there, I would. I'd love to come out there and see what you're doing because I knew when Gretchen was the one, Gretchen that's on this call right now, she's the one that gave me your information. And man, when I got that first email back from you, I knew I had hit pay dirt. I knew I hit a situation here that I was going to truly enjoy learning about. And it's times like this that I'm just absolutely thrilled to be doing what I'm doing here with Missouri Liberty Radio and this broadcast, because I can bring to people things like what you're doing, because the mainstream media is never going to give you a fair shake on this. Have you ever had any mainstream broadcasters interview you?
Yeah, we were on Fox News once.
Was you?
You didn't get very much time, did you?
It was nice. They talked to my partner more than they talked to me because I think they got a little confused. But Rachel Campos Duffy is the one that interviewed us, and she is a devout Christian, a mother of, I think, 8 children, maybe 9.
That's good.
And she really had good questions and was 100% supporting what we're doing here. I mean, all we're doing is we're getting back to basics. You know what, Sam? Children don't need to learn the Pythagorean theorem in elementary school.
No.
They don't need to learn it in middle school. They don't need to learn biology in middle school. They need to learn what we're teaching them out here. They know where the sun sets. They know where the sun rises. They know where to set a water in the middle of summer so that it doesn't grow green algae. They know how to get rid of green algae inside of a water trough, but I won't let them do it because cleaning the water trough is their discipline. So they're not allowed to put any copper in those troughs. I said the copper comes out after summer, and they know that. Because if you mess up, you've got to go outside and scrub the trough until I say it's clean, and then you got to fill it back up again. And they don't detest it. They would just rather do something that they want to do with the animals than to have to clean a water trough that could definitely be cleaned by putting 2 copper poles inside the water trough, but I won't let them because that's their discipline. So, I mean, they enjoy coming to school. They don't want to go home. They don't want their parents to pick them up early. They went fishing Friday. We had Grandparents' Day here to celebrate grandparents, and all the grandparents came, and we all went fishing and canoeing. It was the most beautiful 3 hours here at school with our grandparents, and the children loved it. And these are memories that will last forever.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is exciting stuff, and I'd love to see way more people doing what you're doing. Gretchen, do you have something?
Well, explain what happens during your Zoom seminars for people who are interested, because here in Missouri has a very large homeschool community. And so tell us about your seminar.
Yes. So the crazy thing is, Gretchen, when I started, I've got to preface it with this. When I started the school, I went through a whole lot of chaos. And I remember asking God almost every day, why, if you called me to this and you want me to do this, why is there always a door shut in front of us? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why do I have to go back and redo this? And I got to the end where we got our occupancy permit when God had told me in January that we were going to get our occupancy permit in May, and the workers looked at me and laughed. And I said, look, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what God told me. And then when the May came and we got the occupancy permit, they all reminded me of that conversation I had with them. And I said, you don't need to remind me. You just need to know that when God speaks, you can't stop what God has put in motion. So I told them, I said, I don't understand why all this happened. But when I went to God and asked him at that time, I said, hey, are we at the pinnacle? Because if we are, I'm good. But I feel like we're missing something. And then that video went viral. And then it all came to fruition. I was asked to write a manual about opening a school. And I said, I don't know. And the girl that asked me to do it, and I said, I don't know what that is. Like, I write children's books. I don't write manuals. And she says, well, you're about to write a manual. And so I went to bed, and I was so concerned about it. And I asked God, I said, look, throw me a bone. Once again, hit me in the head with it, because I don't know what this manual looks like. I'll do whatever you want me to do. You put her in my path. But just show me, give me the bones. If you give me the bones, I can do anything. And so he woke me up again 2:30 in the morning, and he said, I want you to Google these words. And I Googled these words, and there was the manual. It was a medical manual, and he said, there are your bones. And I got out of bed. I jumped out of bed. I went over to my computer, and for 30 days I wrote that manual. And so that's what I have now, is this amazing manual that people, when they come, they can purchase to leave and to begin their school. I tell them every single mistake I made, how to avoid it, why you want to avoid it, and how to have a smooth transition from leaving public school to opening your own school. And then we also have the ability for people to come and work for us, or work with me as a mentor or a coach. But when they come to the conference, it's a 2-day conference, and I basically sit down and I tell them how you begin a school from beginning your brand, talking about brand colors, what your logo is going to look like, why is this even important, how you get a website page, how you get a landing page, what are the differences, what do you want, are you on social media now talking? We talk about the importance of involving your community now. Don't wait until you're ready to open. You've missed the ball. I tell them my story and how I began, and when I started talking about leaving school was when I was in public school, and that is where everyone in the community came out when I said, hey, I'm building a one-room schoolhouse. It's going to look like Little House on the Prairie, a high-pitched ceiling, and we're going to have double doors, and I need a plumber. I need someone who can lay concrete. I need this, and this. And everybody came out of the woodwork. In fact, a lot of the stuff was donated. The time and the services were donated. We just had to buy the supplies. And it was just amazing. And so because I went through all that journey, I know how to do that. I know now how to start a building from scratch. But you know what? You don't need to buy a building. You don't even need to build a building. You know what we've got across this country that's laying dormant Monday through Friday? Churches. Our Monday through Friday classrooms that are not being used. We can go knocking on these doors. I'm going to teach you how to make a business plan. You can't go knocking on a door of a church until you sat down and created your business plan with me. And it is many steps that we've got to do. We can do it all in about 2 weeks if you sit down with me. I'm going to teach you how to do it. We're going to put a presentation together. I'll even walk you through it, and I'll zoom in with you to help you get through the door and to help you walk through it. I'll ask you the questions that they're going to ask you. But we have got churches all across our nation that are empty classrooms that we can begin these schools in. We've also got a lot of Methodist churches around our nation that are in crisis right now. You know, the Methodist has divided. You have Global, you have United, and there's been a division, and they've lost a lot in their membership, and there are buildings all over the United States that are coming available that people might decide to purchase and begin a one-room schoolhouse, which would be so adorable. But I'm going to teach you how to do that. I've got people that work with us right now on a consult level where we're consulting with them every week, and we're walking through this every step of the way with them. We've given them all the framework that we have, the business plans that we have. We've taught them how to put the classroom together, given them everything we have from contracts to having a handbook, having all the information you got to have for your license, for your underwriters, for your insurance, and how to go about getting insurance, because it's a tough process if you don't know what you're doing. I went through a whole lot of information on that one just to get insurance for the school, and every school should have $1 million insurance policy on themselves because they want to be protected. In this day and age, you've got to be protected. You can't take anything for granted anymore. And so these are the things that we teach. These are the things that we try to help people with, and we want to make sure they're successful. So they have a choice. They can come in and they can walk out and they can DIY it. I have a lady that walked out and she said, I'm just going to try to DIY it. And she's had a hard time. And I said, did you get the manual? She said, no. I said, sweetheart, you can't go to a school, to a church if you don't have the manual so that you know what you have to have in place. At least grab the manual so you know how to get out and properly DIY it. Because if you're just DIYing it based on what you think you should do, it's not going to work, and I don't want to see that happen to you. So you have the choice to come in, entry, and just get the manual and walk out and DIY it. We've got people that have been successful at doing that. We've got other people that need help. They need that consultation on a weekly basis. We have a group where we Zoom with them, we help them, and we put them in a place on Facebook. And we've got a space on Facebook where we're all generating ideas, asking questions, and getting that community support, because we want to make sure that everybody feels supported while they're building their school. And we also teach them how to go out and get your students. I mean, it's to me, it was an easy thing to do because my presence on social media was so vocal. I was never silent about leaving public school, even though they were still paying my giving me a paycheck. I was very vocal about all the reasons why I was leaving, why our leadership in our Commonwealth problem, and what we needed to do to get back our children's childhood. And trying to fix the situation was never going to be a solution. You're not going to be able to fix it. It was never designed to be fixed. It was always designed to control the masses, and you're never going to fix something that's designed to be that way.
Yeah, you can.
Well, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
Sam, I just want to say real quick, I think you have a caller trying to call in.
Okay. If there's somebody trying to call in, if you want to call in, the lines are tied up here locally, so if you want to check in on the conference bridge long enough to come in and chat, you can call in. The phone number is 609, and then the telephone number is 663-4270. That's 609-663-4270. So call that number, and you can ask a question. I was just simply going to say that I'm enjoying this so much. If I can ever, we're in the process of looking for a new webmaster, but once I find a new webmaster, your site is going to go up as one of our partner sites because I'm so excited about this. And
I appreciate that, Sam. I really need y'all to pray. And everybody that's hearing this right now, I don't know how many people are listening to this. I mean, I told God, I said, when you called me and said, hey, will you be on the show? I never hesitate. I don't. I don't care who it is. I'm just going to, if it falls on one ear and one ear perks up, it was all worth it to me. It's worth it to God. And so I'm just here to serve God, and God sent you to me, and so here we are. But, what I really need more than anything is prayer. I need people to listen. I need people to understand that we have been sold propaganda almost all of our lives. Everything we've been given has been a big propaganda lie when it comes to education, especially. And we've got to take off these blinders, and we've got to see it for what it is. Why do we give our kids to people that we don't even know and trust? If I'm not going to give my child across the street to a neighbor for 8 hours a day, why would I do it to a public school? My first thought would be, I don't know who you are. You could be you could sex traffic my child or be a pedophile. I don't know you, right? But we don't ever think that about public school because they do a background check. But how many times have we heard through the media about pedophiles in public schools? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The high school where there's a whole pedophile case going down right now, and it went up as high as central office. It's sad. For years and years and years that went on. The most disgusting thing that I've heard, and of course this has not been proven, that's all alleged, but it's just disgusting to even hear that.
There's a caller.
Somebody checking in. Who's calling?
Hi, this is David Rice.
Yeah, David Rice. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Sam?
Oh, just fine. You got a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm Danita. I am a process coordinator at a school district. And when I saw the web media about your school, I went to my superintendent and I talked to him about what you're doing. Because I think I'm trying to stay in public school, but I don't know if I'm going to long term. But I see so many benefits from what you're doing. And the fact that we're just locking kids up in a room for 8.5 hours a day, and it's not getting anywhere. If you were going to bring it into a school district, how would you do it?
Never would I ever take it into a school district because we're just going to fuss. I mean, let's be real. Kids need to be outside. They need to be underneath the sunshine. They need to get their vitamin C, their vitamin D. They need to be grounding in the earth. They need to be planting. They need to know how to sustain their own food. They need to know those things because there's going to come a time in the very near future that that's going to be one of the most important things for them to understand is how to grow and sustain their own food, how to provide for their own family, to make sure that it's not lab-created food or it's not some kind of food with all these chemicals in it. I mean, just look at our food supplies now. I go to the grocery store and it's just terrible. But I would never partner with a public school system because I'm teaching about Jesus, and they're going to sit and they're going to throw in front of me separation of church and state when they really don't understand separation of church and state. And that's another rabbit hole we can go down another day. But I'm talking about Jesus. Like if you've got a problem with one another, we just had two children in school not getting along. I didn't even know about it until the parents told me about it. I was like, like, well, I was totally clueless. I didn't even know that they were having this little tiff at school. So the next day we had a big powwow at school, our Monday meeting, and I told the children, I said, you go home and you talk about this to other people, but the Bible tells you not to do that. What are you supposed to do when you've got a fault with your brother? And you are brothers in school because you've been going to school together for 4 years. So, like, what are you supposed to do? And the one boy said, we're supposed to go to the person. I said, did you go to him? He goes, no. I said, no, that doesn't work. If he just blows you off, what are you going to do then? Go get you. I said, okay, did you do that? No. Okay, so if you've not done that, why are you going to your mom and dad? Like, when's the last time you guys ever grabbed a hand and just prayed for one another? Prayer works a miracle. We don't teach children to pray. We don't teach children how to work through their problems. We don't teach them how the Bible says we're supposed to work through problems. And as long as the public school system is going to say that there can be no God in school, there's nothing that we can talk about, because God is the center of our day. He is the center of our lives, and we make him that. We put him there. He's got a special place in our life and in this school. Everything we do is surrounded by God. And so I could never partner with a school, but I tell you what, the moment you're ready to walk away and you're ready for freedom and independence and you're ready to make your own school calendar and make decisions that are going to be good for you, decisions that you can stand behind and say, man, that's a good decision. I made a sound decision there. When you're ready for that, I'm ready to help you. All you got to do is contact me. And if I don't have a seminar going, I'll sit down and talk, and we'll get you hooked up and lined up and get a school going. Because there's no reason why you should have to spend your time. If you love Jesus with your whole heart, and you know that what you're doing in public school is just spinning the wheel, the rabbit wheel, the rat wheel, and it's a race that's never going to get you anywhere. I mean, come on. Let's look at all of our children across the United States right now. Our fourth graders can't even get beyond 30% on a test. They're not proficient. 70% of our children are not proficient in reading and writing at the fourth grade level. That's very scary. So there's no amount of money that we're going to throw at the problem that's going to fix it. We just keep throwing money there, and you're just going to continue to see the same cycle of behavior, and you're going to have to make a decision. And when you make your decision to leave, I'm here to help you.
I appreciate that. I am closer than I would like to be, or closer than I think my school would like me to be, as long as they don't hear about this call tonight.
You know what? I wasn't afraid. My colleagues used to say, I cannot believe you're on social media talking about this and still working here. I said, I leave in June. I mean, I have nothing to lose. I want people to know what's happening. I'm not being rude. I'm just exposing the truth. I expose the truth all the time. If we hide the truth, we're part of the problem. I don't want to be part of the problem.
Yeah, I wrote a paper tonight I'm in a college class. I wrote a paper tonight about this exact problem. And before you came on, before they were talking about they mentioned how you talked about spiritual warfare with our children, and I had wrote that an hour before that conversation into a paper that I submitted for all the classmates to see. And so I know that I'm already pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable. Everything I write for a paper is going to get back to my school. And so I was complaining about the whole system from top to bottom.
It's not broken. It's designed to work exactly the way it's supposed to work. It's a Prussian model that was used over in Germany way before Horace Mann picked up all this and Karl Marx and brought this all over to America. So, I mean, it's a Prussian model that was designed to control the masses, and it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We keep saying that the system's broken, but it's just not broken. It's designed to do exactly what it's doing. And so what we've got to do is we've got to walk away from the propaganda we've been sold. We've got to say, we're not going to listen to it anymore. We've got to wake up and ask ourselves, why are we buying into this? There's a better way. Why would we do this? Do you have children?
I got 3 boys. They all graduated. They're in college.
God bless them. You better pray for them every single night, because college is one of the worst places for them to go. But I don't know how parents send their children to school anymore. Maybe because they did. I got through it, and my grandparents got through it. My mom and dad got through it. I mean, this is something we all do. But we never sit back and say, why do we do this? Why do we give our kids over to perfect strangers and to teachers like that little girl's teacher who had a picture of her spouse, who was also a female, on her desk, and then told the little girl that was 5 years old, 2 women can be married, and one can be a wife, and one can be the husband.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that, Anita, truer words were never spoken. I've always said that ever since I've gotten involved in starting to expose a lot of this stuff. I said, it's strange how the very parents who would think nothing of being out there with their kids to make sure some stranger pedophile doesn't pick them up off the street while they're waiting for a bus will put them on that bus, not knowing what they're going to run into at the other end.
They don't even know who the janitor is at the school.
Yeah.
For all they know, he's a pedophile.
And I'm not saying that all these people are pedophiles. I'm just saying, if you're not going to take your child across the street, down the street, around the corner, drop your child off to a perfect stranger, say, hey, can you watch my child so I can go to work today? Why are you doing it in a public school system? Why do you think that's safe? It's been proven not to be safe time and time and time again.
Yeah.
You're right. And the state of Texas, in a 5-year span, they had over 8,000 cases of pedophilia. But in, say, the Catholic Church, for example, I wrote about this, but the Catholic Church only had 22 examples of that in the same 5-year period. And so while there are bad actors in almost every institution you're going to come across, schools are far less safe for children. And it's unequivocal. The data is out there, but no one will listen to it.
Yep.
Nobody. They all have their blinders on, and it's the greatest hoax ever. There are a lot of hoaxes that we've seen in our lifetimes, but this is one of the greatest I've ever seen. And I just, I'm baffled because when I put my blog out, I used to get a lot of people that would respond back to me about it, but now they don't respond too often anymore. And I'm sure that's because I keep telling them what's going on. For instance, up here in Northern Virginia, and what's going on in New Jersey. I mean, now New Jersey, I had a lady respond to me today in social media, and she said, I hope that you can continue doing what you're doing there in Virginia, because here in New Jersey, they're trying to pass 2 bills that's going to make us have to teach DEI and LGBTQ to homeschool children. And I told her, I said, let me say this to you with all the love in my heart. Jesus overturned the tables out of a fit of anger because he did not like what was going on, and I can definitely overturn those same tables. Let them come knocking on my door and tell me that I have to teach that to these children. I will go down on that one. That's a hill I will die on, because we are not going to do that. There is no way we are ever going to succumb to that kind of behavior here at this school or any school like this. Now, I know that there are other private schools that probably would. I'm not. My job is to protect the innocence of children, and I can't teach Jesus in one hand and hold all of these woke ideologies in another.
Yep.
You can't serve 2 masters. Pick the master you're going to serve.
I tried to leave public education, went to a public school or private school for about 1.5 years. And that experience, I was working with people who weren't Christians, who weren't devoted towards raising a child up spiritually, and they wanted to indoctrinate the kids with the same DEI nonsense that I had just left the public school for. And so I ended up leaving there. And I came back to public schools. A long story short, it just ended up God put me here for a reason, and I'm not entirely sure what it is, but reading your story, listening to it, has been very important for my own journey, for what I want to do for myself and for my own community.
Well, let me remind you that there are no coincidences in the Bible. There are no coincidences why Sam reached out to me. I didn't know Sam before Sam reached out to me. And Sam didn't know about me until Gretchen reached out to him. And then I didn't know you until Sam put me on the radio tonight.
Yep.
So there's a reason. Our paths cross because of divine inspiration. There's a reason why our paths cross in this universe. And when we go back and look at Ruth and Boaz and Naomi, we understand that there are no coincidences in this world. It's all through divine scripture. You just got to read it and you'll figure it all out. But you and I have crossed our paths because you're being called to something different. There's no reason for you and I to have this conversation tonight if you weren't being called. I was here to inspire you, to help you understand where you need to be, where your calling is. You're not going to make the difference that you need to make in public school. And I know there are a lot of Christians out there who have faulted me and said, oh, well, I'm a light in my school, and I'm helping other kids. No, you're not. You might be a little bit of a light, yes, but you have a greater impact by building your own school, beginning your own school, going to a church, telling them that you are looking to build a school, begin a school, and you need space, and asking them if you can borrow part of the church, pay them a little bit of rent or pay them no rent at all. It depends on, what kind of decision they all come up with. But there's a reason why God spoke to me that day in the hayfield. I thought when he said, you're going to build a school here, that it was going to be for 10 children. I remember going down to the county planning commission, and I said, I'm just building a little school for 10 children. And one of the men there, one of the big shots there sitting around the table, who tried so hard to intimidate me, who later became a dear friend, looked at me and said, he put his hands on the table and said, you're going to grow exponentially. And I said, oh, no, sir, no. I'm just going to have 10 children. I'm just going to teach her for the rest of my life. And this time his hands hit the table hard and his face got red. And he said, I said, you're going to grow exponentially. I'm like, Lord, is that you? I had no idea. Like, is that you, God, trying to tell me that I need to quit limiting you? Don't put limits on you. And so I quit putting limits on him. I don't put limits on God. Every morning I wake up and I say, Lord, good morning. What are we doing today? Wherever you lead, I'll follow. Like, here I am. Just take me where we're going. Just throw me a bone. Let me know what I'm supposed to see, because sometimes I don't always see it. I get so busy. I feel like sometimes I miss the trail. I try really hard to keep my nose focused. But, there's a reason. Our paths are crossing tonight. And there's somebody else out there listening to this, too, that God has put in their heart. I need to protect my grandchildren, or I need to protect my children, or I had no idea it's this bad in public school. Or, hey, I know my child's teacher is a lesbian, and the school said she's not going to talk about that in school, but this is how she is going to talk about it when she's got a simple picture on her desk.
Yeah, there's books in our library that are checked. They're not for the children, but the adults check them out, and they're wildly inappropriate books. And it's like,
it's in our public libraries. It's in the public library in the children's section.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so even a school board member's wife who works at my school checks them out. And what are you going to do in that situation? There's no defeating that dragon. You have to chip away at it in a different way. I've been thinking about micro schools for a long time.
You pray, you walk away, you take the children that want to come to you and learn, the parents that see the value in what you have to offer. You open your doors, you hang your shingle, and you teach until the day you die. And you lay that strong spiritual foundation in those children, because the Bible says, teach a child when he is young, when he is old, he will not depart from it. These children that I'm teaching right now, a couple of them are not going to be with me after 5th grade. Their parents are going to take them out and going to keep them because they're getting too old and they want to homeschool them and do other things with them. That's fine. And then one of the little boys, he does not have parents that go to church. And he said, Miss Danita, where am I going to learn about Jesus? And I said, baby, I taught you how to read on a 12th grade level. You're 8 years old reading on a 12th grade level. You pull out that Bible that I'm going to give you the day that you leave this school. Don't you lose it. You take that Bible and you put it in a safe spot and you read God's holy word. But, baby, I've already placed inside your heart the foundation. I built a strong foundation on God. And you will always, wherever you're at in this world, whatever star you're looking at, you're always going to know who God is, because I poured into you and I loved you with everything I have. And that's what I'm building. I'm building foundations in kids that are not getting foundations in public schools. And if you build it in 10 your first year, 21 your second, 27 your third, 37 your fourth year, maybe next year we'll build another building and we'll add 100 children. I don't know what the Lord wants me to do. But I know this, that every single child I build a foundation in, I have done my job. And when they grow up, they will not depart from that. They can't depart from that knowledge. That knowledge will never be erased from their memory. They will always know right from wrong. They will always have a relationship with Jesus. They might walk away, backslide a little bit as they get a little older, but they're going to know who their Savior is, because I built that foundation in them, and that's what you do. You're not going to win that battle. You're never going to turn the public school system into something it was never designed to be. We should not even want that to happen. What we need to do is go out there and make a solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm having trouble with my college professor just last week having this conversation. So.
Yep.
Well, your college professor's probably as woke as the day is long. Bless his heart. We'll just pray for him.
It's a Baptist college, so it's horrible, but it's at a Baptist college. So.
You know, in the South, we just look at people and say, bless your heart. And so maybe that's what you should do, just say, bless your heart, and just walk away and pray for them, because we all need prayer. And if you don't pray, you're just going to get angry. So just pray that God helps him and helps you bite your tongue, because you're not going to change it. You're just not. You're not going to be able to. So I wish you the best, and I hope that you'll go on your way, and these conversations will stir inside of your heart the willingness to want to follow the Lord and to build something very special for his children, because Texas needs it. We've got one school in Texas right now that's thriving. It's in, I think it's Howe, Texas, Howe, Howe, Texas, and it's called Salt and Light Academy, and they are thriving. And so she came to one of my first seminars, and they're doing just excellent out there in Texas. And we've got a school in Missouri, too. I'll have to send that name to you.
Yeah, please do.
It's in my head right now.
Yeah.
I'll have to send that to you.
I'll get off the line so Sam and Gretchen and Tricia can continue the interview. But may I email you?
Yeah.
Through your link on your website?
Yeah, so whatever Sam has up there, whatever you find, just email it, and I'll be sure to get back with you.
Good deal.
Thank you very much, Danita.
You're welcome. Bye.
Right. By the way, all the information regarding what Danita is doing, that'll go out in the show notes tomorrow. We do show notes here. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention. One of the things that kind of sets us apart with what we're doing here with Missouri Liberty Radio and this off-the-cuff broadcast is we're not the biggest broadcast, but one of the things I've always said when I did radio, I wanted quality listeners over quantity. And that's what we do have here. And that's why I enjoy so much what we're doing is calls like David when he called in. And this is the kind of stuff we get. And it's an absolute joy to be able to do shows like this. I would have never met you if it hadn't been for doing this radio show. And Gretchen came around. We met Gretchen. I don't remember how we met Gretchen, but we did.
We met at a rally, I think.
Missouri Freedom Initiative.
Missouri Freedom Initiative rally. Yeah, absolutely. Which, by the way.
Hey, Sam, I found the name of that school.
Yes.
It's called Legacy Christian Academy in Fairgrove, Missouri.
Fairgrove, Missouri. Okay.
Fairgrove.
Very good. I'm not sure where that is.
Say that name again.
It's Legacy Christian Academy in Fairgrove, Missouri. And the director and the owner's name is Tiffany Hill. She's an outstanding Christian and great values and morals, and she's doing an excellent job out there. She attended a seminar as well, and she's just on fire.
Good.
Just making things happen out there in Fairgrove. I'm so proud of her.
Wow, I'll have to contact her and start a network here, because one of my goals, if nothing else, with what I'm doing here is to get people together to start these things, because there's such a shortage of them and so many people wanting what you have, Danita, and what so many people are trying to get going. The more of these we could get going, the better off it will be for more students to be able to experience this. And so I'm just overjoyed. Let me ask you a question here. In case there's somebody out there, you've given your testimony. Your testimony is just wonderful, to hear. And guaranteed there's somebody out there that probably does not know the Lord the way you do. I mean, it's obvious that the Lord was working in your life the way all this stuff came together. And so what would you say to somebody who really doesn't know the Lord that well and would like to get to know the Lord? Because that's the first part of this whole thing. If you don't know the Lord, you're just going to be drifting astray out there trying to do this, in my opinion.
Let me tell you, when I started the school in our first year at the little church, I've always known the Lord. I always joked as a child. We were in church every single time the doors were open, and I used to say that my mom and daddy probably conceived me in the church because that's how often we were always at church. And Mama always had us at a church. I've grown up in the church. I love Jesus. I knew all 66 books of the Bible when I was 5 years old. I remember standing up in front of church and saying them, and older people telling me they didn't even know them all. Bless Mr. Lutz for telling me that. I'll never forget that. But I've always thought that I knew the Lord, Sam, until I got ready to build a school. I always thought that I had faith the size of a mustard seed. I could do anything through Christ who strengthens me. But I never used to say I can do anything because I love Jesus. That's how I just didn't know what I needed to know until I got ready to build a school. And that first year we were inside the church across the street, and we were having a hard time getting our building permits situated and our some site plans that we needed to have. It was just a long, drawn-out process, and every time I turned around, it was something else pricing me out of the build, it seemed like. And I remember walking into the church one day. I had both my arms filled with bags that I carried back and forth to the church so I wouldn't leave things in the church for the members to get upset about. And sanctuary, when I walked in the side door and I heard the Holy Spirit say, come in here and pray. And I said, why? I mean, I'm talking out loud like I am to you. And I said, why? And I heard the Holy Spirit say, I just want you to come in here and pray. I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you know my heart. Like, I've been in there with the kids every day praying. They have seen me cry over the mistakes that I've made. They've seen this. They've seen that. Why one more prayer? What is that going to do for me today, God? You know me more than anyone knows me. And then I heard the Holy Spirit get so tender with me. And just like my grandma would just pat my head sometimes and stroke my hair, I just felt the Holy Spirit say, just put your bags down and child, I dropped them, kind of not nicely. I said, fine, I dropped them. I walked into the sanctuary. I looked up at the picture of Jesus they have up there, and I bent down where I thought that, they would have people kneeling down and praying. And I said, all right, I'm here. What do you want? What can I say to you today that's going to be any different than any other day? And then I didn't hear the voice of God anymore, and I just started crying. And I said, Lord, I don't know what you want from me. I've done the best I can. I've given the best I have. Like, I've done it all for you. Like, I don't know how to make this any better. I don't know how to make the people give me my permit. I don't know how to make the parents happy with this new building. I don't know. So this is it. This is me. And I'm bawling my eyes out. I said, I'm drawing my line in the sand like I did with public school. I said, here, this is me on this side. This is you on the other. I'm giving this all to you. And I pushed all my cares, literally took my hand and pushed it all towards them. I said, I'm giving it all to you because you're bigger than I am. You're my king. I worship you. You've been in my tomorrows. You've been in my years ahead. You know what's best for me, and I don't know what more to do for you. So I'm giving it all to you, and whenever you're ready, just give it back to me, okay? But I need you to take it for a little while because I just want to teach, and I don't want to cry every day anymore. And so I gave it to God, and the kids came into school. My makeup was all off. They could tell I'd been crying. The parents could tell I had been crying. But they also knew that I loved praying to God every morning, so there was nothing really new. And so the day came about, and we came across the street to the farm, and the kids were all working. It was time for dismissal. And one of the grandparents, his name is Red. That's as country gets. And he yells out his car window at me, and I'm sitting underneath the tree. And he says, hey there, Miss Danita, when's that building going to get done? I was like, dear God, have mercy. And I said, Red, I don't know. I said, I gave it all to God today. Whenever God gets it done, he gets it done, okay? He goes, yes, ma'am, have a good day. I said, thank you, Red, love you. And he went on his way. He didn't get 2 feet, 3 feet down the road, and my phone rang, and it said potential spam. Now, when I get potential spam on my phone, I try not to answer it because I just don't have time for it. I own 3 businesses, and I have 37 children I'm teaching. But the Holy Spirit said, answer the phone. I answered the phone. I said, Redburn Farm. And the girl said, Danita? And I recognized the voice. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, this Bridget from the planning department, I got your building permit for you. I fell to my knees in the gravel driveway, and I cried. And I said, I'll be there in 5 minutes. It took me about 10 minutes to get there. And I cried, and I cried. And I said, so that's the lesson you needed me to learn, how to give things to you and not take it back? If you could have told me that at the very beginning, look how much farther we could have been today, Lord. So what I say to you is, if you don't know Jesus, you need to get on your knees, number one, and pray. And you need to pray with everything you got in your heart. Because it's not enough to say, I believe in Jesus. It's not enough to believe. It's enough to say, yeah, he died, he sent his son to die on the cross for me, and that he knows me by my name and knows how many hairs are on my head. That's not enough. You got to have a relationship with him. Like, when I get to heaven, I can only imagine the screen that's going to play out and all the things that he and I have talked about. I mean, people around me are probably going to have their eyes bugging out of their heads because we talk like this all day long. And so you've got to have a relationship. It's not just enough to say, I love Jesus and I know Jesus and Jesus died for me. You better have a relationship with him just like you do your own family. Like your own spouse. You can't just walk into the house and not talk every single day of your life and expect to stay married. You got to work at a relationship, and you got to learn to give things to Jesus. And when he says, give them to me, he means give them to him and don't take them back. The moment that you learn your place in his place in your life, and that he has supreme authority, and you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, but then there are times that you just have to give it to him and say, you've been in my tomorrows, can you just take it for me? I'm so weary, I'm so tired, I just need you to do it for me for a little while. Just give me a little bit of time, give me a small reprieve. And that's what I said to him that day in the church. In that very moment, the phone rang at a potential spam, and I listened. You got to listen to God. You got to hear his voice. I mean, obedience is something pretty powerful. If I had not listened to him, I wouldn't have got my building permit that day. I would not have fallen to the ground and heard Bridget say, are you okay? And I said, you have no idea what has transpired today to make me fall to my knees and have gravel imprint all over my knees. I was so weak with humility, and I was so weak with obedience, I could not even hardly stand up. I just felt like I had done something right, that God really had seen. Not only had he called my name during these builds twice in the middle of the night, not only had he told me what...
Oops, lost the connection. Hang on, I'm going to have to connect it back, Trish.
Okay,
go ahead and hang up. Okay. We lost the connection. All right, we lost the connections for some reason. It just hung up for some reason. Yeah. We're having internet problems. Okay, we got that.
Say we're going to stand before him, and we're going to be like the girls with the talents. the guys with the talents. What did they do with their talents? Did they hide the talent? Did they bury the talent? What did they do with those talents? God's going to look at me, and he will not have the opportunity to say, well, you didn't do something with your talent, because I've listened and I've done everything he's asked me to do. But when God has given us a talent to teach, if you have the talent to teach, if you have the talent to open a building, if you have the talent to open a business, you're an entrepreneur. If you are working in a church and you're thinking, gosh, our church needs to get on board, or maybe our church won't get on board, I need to find another church. These churches that sit back and say, we're not going to open our building up because we don't want to deal with kids in the building. We don't want the liability. First of all, there is no liability because I'm covering you in liability. That's number one. My $1 million insurance policy is going to cover everything that you need, so don't worry about that. Number two, you can't sit back and be worried about a pristinely clean building when you should be about the Lord's business. And Jesus wants us to take care of the children. We're supposed to be like children. He wants us to love them and to teach them and to train them. It's all about training. Well, that's why we've learned so much about Jesus' life and he was learning. There are plenty of examples in the Bible that have taught us that we have got to take care of God's children. And if we don't set that example, if we don't teach them and mentor them and be the good parents that they need to be, that's on our heads when we go to heaven. We're going to deal with that. But then look at all the lives that are going to be lost because we didn't do our job. It's time for us to stand in the gap for children, because if we don't, who will?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen. Preach it, sister.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I'm telling you, this has been so joyful having you here, and I know your testimonial has been wonderful for touching everybody, including me, and you're definitely welcome back on this broadcast anytime. I hope you know that, and we can do this again at some point.
Anytime you want me to come back, you just ask me to come back. I have a lot to talk about.
Oh, I enjoy it. I love
Jesus so much, and I could tell you so many stories. Sam, one day you'll and I'll sit down over some unsweet tea out here, because I'm in the South. I'm from the North. We don't believe in sweet in our tea. I'm actually from Michigan, but here in the South, they all have that sweet tea, the kind that's going to give you a cavity. But I'll give you some unsweet tea, and we'll sit down underneath one of these 100-year-old pecan trees, and we'll talk. There are so many miracles that God has performed here at this farm that has taught his children to believe in him. Now, I'm going to tell you this before I leave. I just got to tell you, because it's just burning inside me. I had a cow. There was a rogue bull in our neighborhood that jumped over my pasture fence. It's like 1,200 bull, and got my little 500-pound mini cow, maybe she was 400 pounds, and penetrated her in the middle of the barnyard and left her bleeding, dying. He did it 3 times. And then we got him out of when we noticed that he was there, we got him out of there. She was hemorrhaging and she was dying. And so the kids and I got her in the barn to protect her. And one of the dads at the time brought a horse trailer up, and she'd never been in a horse trailer. I brought her home from Tennessee, I think it was, on my lap in the back seat of my truck. So this cow has never been in a horse trailer. She's so bougie. And she's just a little bitty thing. And she got her in the barn, and it was a hot summer day, and blood was everywhere. She was going to die before she got to the vet's office. We were trying to get her to the vet. And her eyes went in the back of her head, and she collapsed. And the children, their faces turned white. And I did the only thing I knew what to do. I mean, what do you do in that moment? You lean on God. I bent down beside her. I put my hands on her, and I said, in the name of Jesus, I need you to get up, and I need you to walk in this trailer, because you're not going to die in front of these kids and break their hearts. I need you now, in the name of Jesus, to stand up and get in that trailer. And I took my hands off her, and I wiped my face. 3 seconds. She stood up. Her eyes got back in her face. She walked in that trailer like she'd owned that trailer. We locked it up. The guy took off. He said, I'll be back, Misty. That all happened in like 4 minutes. And he said, I'll be back in a little bit. I'll let you know what the vet said. I said, okay. I had to go sit down in front of our concession stand here at our farm, to sit in a chair, and I had to process what had just happened. And one of the boys came around the side, and he sat down, and he's just holding his head and rocking his head back and forth. I said, you all right, Tay-Tay? He said, I'm fine, Miss Nita. I said, okay, well, tell me what you're thinking. He said, Miss Nita, that was a miracle. Like she was dying, and you went down and you put your hands on her and you prayed, and then God made her stand up, and she walked in that chair like nothing was wrong with her. I said, she did. He said, that was a miracle, wasn't it? I said, it was, Taylor, because God wanted you to understand the power of prayer. He did not do that for me. He did that for you and for everyone in this house, inside this barn. He wanted you all to understand that he is alive and that he loves us so much, and that when you go to him in prayer and you beg him to help you, he is going to help you. And I said, Taylor, I gave him all I had in my heart. I prayed. About a month or two later, one of our horses went colic, my favorite horse that I watched born here at the farm, little tiny mini thing. And we had a field trip coming of about 150 children to the farm that day. They were going to be guests at the farm, and my children were hosting the field trip. And the barn manager said, Ms. D, she's going to die. And I said, well, let me call the vet. And I called the vet. And he said, I can't get there till tonight. I'm in the middle of emergency. I said, okay, well, I got a big trip coming up. I don't know what to do. And then I stopped and I said, wait a minute. I do know what to do. I went in there and I laid my hands on her and I said, in the name of Jesus, I need you. I need you to get healed. I'm putting you in the stall, and I'm leaving you in the care of Jesus. And I went out front, and I grabbed the hands of all the children and the workers that were going to help me in this field trip. And in front of the children, standing and waiting for direction, we put our hands together, and I prayed. And I said, in the name of Jesus, I need you to raise this horse up. Do not let her die. I know that this is a serious situation. We cannot deal with this right now. Nobody can come help her, but you are the greatest physician of all. Please, Lord, just heal her. Heal her in this moment. And when we are done, Lord, let her walk and eat and act like nothing had happened. After the field trip, I went inside and sat on one of the church pews inside the schools. We have church pews in our school. And the barn manager was walking up with the horse on a lead line. And she walked, and I opened up the front door of the school, and she walked inside the school with the horse. And I said, what is this? And she said, we prayed. She said, now look at her. She's eating hay, and there's nothing wrong with her. I said, you're feeding her hay? She said, she wanted it. There's nothing wrong with this horse, Miss Danita. She's healed. I said, she is. She is healed in the name of Jesus. I said, this is what happens when you pray. But see, these two events taught the children that prayer is powerful. We don't teach children that in public school, and they're not at church long enough to get that. They have to see it. And God provided those two situations where these children are walking out of the school one day with a foundation of God. They know Jesus as their personal Savior. They have a relationship with him. They talk to him every day. They go to him when their friends need him, and they go to him when they need the greatest physician of all to heal. And that is what this school is based on. This is why your caller could never have the school inside of a public school, because there's such a division in that spiritual warfare. When we come together as a school every single day, we pray a hedge of protection around this farm, around the school, and around every single family that sends their child to the school. We ask for God's protection because we know the enemy is after us. We know that he's giving us no slack. But the moment we started praying for that hedge of protection in our first year, all of it went away. All of the problems went away. We had a couple parents that were not aligned with us. They walked away. And it all just works. Every day we just come to God and we pray. And so these are the things that we're teaching. These are the things that we're learning. And these are the things that will carry the children as they grow into adults. And this is something unlike anything you'll ever find in a public school. And I dare say you probably wouldn't find this in your best Christian school, because they sit behind a desk in a brick and mortar building all day long, and they don't have the opportunity to really experience God in the everyday setting. And they don't have the opportunity to understand that God gives us every substance we need. If we just take advantage of it, we don't need the grocery stores to go out there and provide that for us. So these are the things that we teach them. I know I've talked a lot. I have a lot to say, but I would love to come back. If anybody hears this and wants to learn more, they can find us at the Red Barn Farm Agritourism on Facebook, or they can find us at the Little Red Schoolhouse, Virginia, on Instagram, and we're also on TikTok. But I'm just so happy that our paths have crossed. And Gretchen, it's been a pleasure. I know I didn't get to speak to you much, but what a pleasure it is that you found me. We're able to share this with Sam, and hopefully somebody out there is listening to this, and they're going to be so inspired that their lives will change for the glory of God and for children.
Well, thank you so much. I'm just so inspired, so grateful, and I know that there are no coincidences. There's only God incidences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I've certainly been touched by this broadcast. So
Thank you.
Blessings to you. It's about 10 o'clock out there where you are, so I know you need to get some rest to get started for the next day.
We're going to Jamestown tomorrow. We're going to see the first permanent settlement in 1607. It happened in Jamestown. And so I'm going to teach the children about the truth of history. We don't use history books at school.
Bless your heart. That's wonderful.
Rights, and we go out and learn history. So anyways, it's been a pleasure speaking to you all. Call me back if you ever want me to come back, and thank you so much. God bless you all.
God bless you, too. Take care of yourself. Uh-huh.
Y'all have a good night.
You too. You bet. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a broadcast.
Wow. Yeah.
What do you think, Gretchen?
That was good.
Just blown away.
Oh, yeah.
That was worth the wait, let's put it that way.
I know, I was not
the
disappointed. And that was a great testimony. I mean, if that doesn't boost your faith in the Lord and wanting to know more about God and what he has for your life, I don't know what is. Because, I mean, it's obvious. You know, I've told people there are real spiritual issues out there. I knew a lady that Trish and I used to ride to church with. They didn't have the most money. They had an old dilapidated car, but they go to church in it.
The gas melted in it, it's just, wow.
It was an old Ford LTD, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, one day they were going to church and the power steering went out, but guess where it went out? It went out in the church parking lot on the way to church. I mean, what else can you say about that? I mean, it could have gone out on some highway somewhere, and I mean to the point where the steering wheel wasn't even moving the wheels. I mean, you just turn it all you want to, and it wasn't even moving the wheels, but it decided to brake in the church parking lot. I've heard stories like this happen. That's a God thing. I don't know how I should explain that, And the stuff that she's had going on in her life.
The angels watch over us. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So, wow. Well, we'll have her back most definitely. And Gretchen, I appreciate you co-hosting with us tonight. I did church. It's been wonderful.
I'm so grateful that you invited me along because I've been inspired and convicted, and I just know something is going to come out of this. So.
Yep. So we need to all get to work. I definitely hope that we had a lot of people listening to this that would like to start to get involved in this. And I know I'm going to keep in touch with her and see what we can do. But, wow, if I'd had an education like that, it would have been a totally different world compared to
we wouldn't have time to be busy to think about bad things. That's good.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Well, it is just now 9 p.m., so that's going to end this show for this week. Gretchen, God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
You too, Sam and Trish.
Yep, and we'll do it again next week with another edition of the broadcast. And as we always say, go out and fight the battle, but let God decide the outcome. God bless you all. Have a great week. See you later. Good night.
What prize has been won when dark clouds surrender, when the storm is undone? Will you stand there shining in the light of the sun? Are your motives worthy? Are your motives true? Are you doing things you would have done to you? Are you really proud of the things that you do? Will you stand there beaming when your life's finally through? dawn is just breaking at the end of the night, will you still have freedom? Will you still have rights? Were you proudly hailing through the perilous fight? Did you hide in darkness or try to shed light? When the curtain is closing and your life passes by, will you pleasantly smile or will you break down and cry? Will you honestly say you gave life your best try? If there's a reason for living, did you ever ask why? When the dawn is just breaking at the end of the night, will you still have freedom? Will you still have rights? Were you proudly hailing through the perilous fight? Did you hide in darkness or try to shed light? As you passed through life, did you seek to grow? Did you hold on tightly or did you let it all go? Did you look for truth or did you not want to know? In the final assessment, you will reap what you sow. In the final assessment, you will reap what you sow. In the final assessment, you will reap what you sow.